Chapter 51. Chapter 51. Persistent Hinata. The family had a happy dinner. Hyuga Hayashi was quite happy to learn that they would not go out to eat today. Although on the surface he still maintains that old-fashioned and serious look, but from his mood swings and body language, Ryosuke can feel that he cares about the feeling of family reunion. But like that kind of warm scene where the family will drink tea and chat together after dinner, it will not appear in Hyuga's house. As before, after eating, Hyuga Hayashi got up and went back to the study, busy with work. And Ryosuke and Hinata also started to practice and homework at night. But now there is a little change, that is, Hanabi has grown up, can walk and jump, it is the age that he can't stay. In the past, there were only Ryosuke and Hinata in the quiet practice field, but now there is Hanabi watching the battle. Sister, come on. Under the far light, the little Hanabi was sitting on the bench, eating some snacks while yelling as if watching a play. The practice field is no longer as dark as it used to be. In order for Hanabi to see their movements clearly and for her not to be afraid, the lights around the practice field are turned on. I also want little Hanabi to cheer me on. Ryosuke looked at Hinata in front of him pretending to be distressed. Humph. Hinata hummed proudly for her sister's support. In front of outsiders, she would appear indifferent, but in front of Ryosuke and Hanabi, she let go of her disguise and protection. And because of several active actual battles, she ranked first in the girl group of the same grade. After regaining her self-confidence, she became a lot more cheerful. Satisfied with Hinata's eager attitude, Ryosuke stretched his body and waved to her with a chuckle, then start now, attack me with all your strength. I haven't met my future wife for a month, so what will be the most anticipated thing after the meeting? Ryosuke doesn't know what others think, but he only has one idea, which is to test whether Hinata's strength has really improved. He was not surprised that she could overwhelm girls of the same grade. As the future head of the Hyuga family, this was what she was supposed to do. And in fact, she should target the entire grade, not just the girls. Can I really shoot casually? Ryosuke-kun. Hinata quickly cried, also stretching his body, preparing for the next battle. When? Looking at her strangely, Ryosuke just started to answer the words when the girl in front of him was already rushing towards him. This familiar scene couldn't help but make the smile on his face even bigger. Effortlessly dodging Hinata's sneak attack, Ryosuke casually threw another palm behind him, parrying the real attack. This scene seems familiar, isn't it the trick he played when his father tested him more than a year ago? But unfortunately, your action intentions are too obvious, and this low-level method will have a big loophole in the face of real battles. After easily blocking Hinata's attack, Ryosuke's chakra condensed under his feet, away from her attack range, and instructed softly, you just need to understand that real fighting is unscrupulous, and that's it. I thought, you wouldn't avoid my first palm. Although the attack was easily evaded, Hinata didn't stop and followed up with a fierce attack on Ryosuke. But it's a pity that Ryosuke didn't even plan to block the palm slap in the back. With his hands behind his back, he swayed his body wantonly. No matter how hard Hinata stared at Ryosuke, he couldn't give himself a chance to hit his acupuncture points. That's why, those are all low-level methods, just like when I faced my father's test, I took advantage of his mercilessness and underestimation of my psychology. While dodging her attack like a stroll in the courtyard, Ryosuke continued, in a real battle, the enemy will not show mercy, and most of the time, they will not underestimate you. Although I guessed you're fighting thinking, I don't know what stage your level has progressed in this month, let alone what new spells and moves you have mastered. But now it seems that you have mastered the shadow clone technique. As he said that, his body leaped high with a very strange amplitude, once again distanced himself from Hinata. Where he was originally standing, another Hinata swung his palm in the air. On the field, two Hinata appeared. One of these is a shadow clone with an entity, unlike the illusion caused by the normal clone technique. If he had been careless in the first slap just now and thought it was just a clone with confidence, he should have been slapped by Hinata by now, sealing part of the acupuncture points. After all, Ryosuke didn't roll his eyes during the battle, he just relied on his eyes and senses to avoid. You are really good, Ryosuke. Under the high-intensity attack, none of the palms worked, making Hinata a little out of breath, but she kept a determined look on her face. No matter how hard I try, I can only see your back. For a month, I thought I could finally stand by your side, but now it seems that I am too optimistic. In the past, she often practiced against Ryosuke. Although she lost every time, she had no idea of Ryosuke's strength at that time. But now, she is already the number 1 girl group in the same grade in actual combat, and she has no way to leave any traces on Ryosuke, which makes her clearly feel the gap between her and Ryosuke. In other words, the gap between Ryosuke and their peers. Maybe even Uchiha Sasuke, who has always been pretentious, will never be able to touch Ryosuke like her. After all, Hinata once observed Uchiha Sasuke's fight. Although she is not sure that she can win the opponent, she can still fight back and forth. Remember what I told you? Don't set too high goals for yourself. Ryosuke said gently to Kide, you are already very good. Compared with the original you have improved so much, you have already exceeded my expectations. But I still can't touch you, can I? Hinata bit her lower lip tightly, feeling very unwilling. Shaking his head helplessly, Ryosuke continued to appease, when I picked you up from school in the afternoon, I heard you say, are you going to fight with Inuzuka tomorrow? Although the Inuzuka clan is not weak in physical arts, more secret arts need to be performed in conjunction with ninja dogs. Akamaru of Kaiba hasn't grown up yet. With your current speed and strength, as long as you maintain a stable mentality, there is no problem in defeating him. You can start to challenge the boys group. Your progress is really beyond my imagination. But I still can't keep up with you. Not being distracted by the soothing sound, Hinata still looked at Ryosuke persistently, at least. I must touch you at least once. Roll your eyes, open. Accompanied by this stubbornness, the chakra in her body surged and gathered around the eye sockets. For this battle, Ryosuke, who has always been very casual, looked at her with some surprise. So, during this month, has she opened her eyes? End of this chapter. Chapter 52. Chapter 52. The growing girl. There are a lot of people in the Hyuga clan, but not everyone has the ability to roll their eyes. If you want to awaken the blood in your body and open the white eyes, it is related to the intensity of each person's practice and the purity of the white eyes. And the use of gentle fist does not necessarily have to have supercilious eyes. Bun plays an auxiliary role in the use of gentle fist. In fact, the strength of gentle fist mainly lies in the familiarity of acupuncture points and meridians, the control of chakra and the skill of exerting force. The inside of the human body is very complicated, and the various meridians intertwine and the acupuncture points are innumerable. There is no white eye, only relying on the naked eye and the familiarity of the human body, although it is also possible to intercept chakra and acupuncture, but this is difficult to do without certain talents and efforts. And even if it can be done, most of the Hyuga people can only use incomplete gentle fist, but cannot exert their full power. The existence of white eyes is the shortcut for the Hyuga clan to master gentle fist. Originally, under the one-on-one guidance of Ryosuke, Hinata is already very familiar with the meridians and acupoints of the human body, so she can use the incomplete gentle fist without relying on her eyes. And now, she has awakened her own bloodline. Knowing that Hinata actually rolled his eyes during his absence, Ryosuke was very relieved, but he still didn't have the slightest idea of letting go. With his hands behind his back all the time, he dexterously dodged Hinata's attack, and from time to time, he gave some pointers. After opening the white eyes, your inside ability has improved, and your speed and strength have also improved, but your desire to fight is not strong enough, and you have not yet formed your own fighting consciousness. Unfortunately, although your eyes can see my movements and transmit them to your brain, it is still too slow to let your brain respond in a short time and feed back to your hands and feet to attack, so you will only always one step behind me. White eyes and gentle fist are just means of attack, they are tools, and you are the one who uses the tools. The most important thing is to think about how to use these powers well. After Hinata opened her white eyes, it means that she will have a more thorough view of Ryosuke's body acupuncture points and meridians. If he gets a touch, he'll likely be greeted with a truncated chakra followed by a bombarding semi-finished 8 trigrams 32 palms. Although 32 palms is only a semi-finished product of 8 trigrams 64 palms, as long as it is used properly, it can also make him lose chakra's body enhancement in a short period of time. But it's a pity that with this palm, Hinata couldn't hit it no matter what. It was exactly the same as when he didn't open his eyes just now. Even Ryosuke couldn't touch Kakuzu. Come on. Sister, come on. In the distance, under the lights, Hanabi is still happily cheering on Hinata. As a young girl, she couldn't understand the advantages and disadvantages of this battle, let alone what her older sister Hinata was facing now. Your chakra is almost depleted. Ryosuke reminded softly, with your chakra amount, it is extremely difficult to use a high-level ninjutsu like Shadow Clone. After you open white eyes, your chakra consumption will be even greater. Let's stop here for today's practice. He didn't roll his eyes, but from Hinata's increasingly sluggish movements and panting, it can be seen that her current condition is extremely reluctant. However, Hinata ignored his words, gritted his teeth and kept waving his hands. But alas, such efforts are futile. With the rapid passing of chakra, her speed, strength and other values have begun to decline, and Bun has become very unstable, and she may withdraw at any time. Slow pace, slow swing. Since chakra is not enough to maintain the white eyes, not enough to increase her physical fitness, then she relies on pure physical fitness to persevere. As a member of a taijutsu family, Hinata's physical fitness is very good. She persisted for a long time. For how long, it is difficult for Ryosuke to be distracted to judge the approximate flow rate of time during the battle. The area of the Hyuga clan is very large, and the bustling Konoha village at night cannot be felt by them who are in the center of the Hyuga clan. This practice field has been extremely quiet from the very beginning. Under the night sky, they can't feel the passage of time even more. As time passed, Hinata did not give up, and Ryosuke did not continue to persuade her to continue the test with her. Until the end, her movements were almost tortoise speed, the exhausted look on her face almost lost consciousness, she gritted her teeth and did not speak, and Ryosuke also did not let her touch the slightest bit of water. Even the current Hinata has no ability to use gentle fist. Her clapping had already turned into a weak fist, but he always took it seriously. But even if it is taken seriously, the gap between the two is too big, and Ryosuke has always regarded this battle as a test for Hinata. Miss Hinata, Master Ryosuke, I will take Miss Hanabi home first. In the end, it was the housekeeper Aoyang who came to the practice field to break the stalemate. Because of Hanabi's young age, she fell asleep lying on the chair without knowing when. That is to say, people in this world are generally of superior physical fitness, otherwise, there is a high probability that she will catch a cold tomorrow. After all, it has entered autumn now. Come here today. Ryosuke looked at Hinata who had stopped, and spoke softly again. The face is full of reconciliation, but Hinata's body has reached the limit, and her trembling body has no extra strength to continue this test. Can I still go? Ryosuke walked over with a chuckle, trying to hold her up. Seeing that it was getting closer, Hinata slammed forward with the last bit of strength. Thump, she fell to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Even at the last moment, Ryosuke did not let go of his guard and easily dodged away. Hateful! Reluctantly lying on the ground, Hinata was already unable to get up. Tell me, should I say you are competitive, or should I praise you for your perseverance? Ryosuke shook his head helplessly, and walked over to help her up, but this time, facing Hinata reaching out to grab his collar, he didn't dodge. Please ask for leave tomorrow. In your state, tomorrow or even the day after tomorrow, you may not be able to resume normal activities. It will be troublesome to face Inyazuka Kaiba. Helping her to a chair and sitting down to rest, Ryosuke said gently, Inyazuka Fang, you won't be like me, just dodge and don't fight back. Ryosuke, is my talent really that bad? Hinata pursed her lips and leaned against Ryosuke weakly, looking very disappointed. The self-confidence accumulated during this period was destroyed overnight. Losing to me is not something to be ashamed of. Ryosuke's expression was a little subtle, he was afraid that Hinata would have this kind of situation where he set the goal too high and couldn't complete it, and hit himself. What level do you think I am now? While asking Hinata, he took her delicate arm and kneaded it to help her relieve the soreness and pain in her muscles. Ryosuke is amazing, the most amazing person I've ever seen. Her answering voice was extremely soft, and for some reason, Ryosuke felt that Hinata's body trembled more violently. Then do you think, me, Inyazuka Kaiba, or Uchiha Sasuke, who is stronger? Because it was awkward to massage her while sitting, Ryosuke simply stood up and stood behind her, using gentle fists acupressure technique to stimulate her back and dredge her meridians. You must know that stimulating acupuncture points and dredging meridians is also one of the common methods used by medical ninjas, and almost everyone in the Hyuga family knows this. When, of course, Ryosuke is stronger. It seems that through chakra to dredge the meridians and relieve fatigue, Hinata feels uncomfortable, and her voice is broken. That's it. If I want to be stronger than them, shouldn't you target them first, and then challenge me, the strongest one, after defeating them? Ryosuke's tone was very gentle, and Hinata's persistence and hard work made him like this girl more and more. End of this chapter. Chapter 53. Chapter 53. The relationship between husband and wife in the dark, by the bright lights. While muttering, Ryosuke used chakra to ease the fatigue and soreness of Hinata's body after the high-intensity battle. Acupoints and meridians are very fragile. It is normal to feel some pain through the stimulation and dredging of chakra. Didn't you get used to it before? Why are you shaking so much now? This technique is a test of chakra's control and gentle fists mastery. In the past, every time Ryosuke helped Hinata practice, he used this method to make himself proficient in the use of chakra. Although this method of practice is different, it is much more complicated than basic tree climbing and treading water. By the way, you can also help her review the acupuncture points and meridians of the human body during this process. It is also with the help of such an excellent teacher as him that Hinata was able to learn the skills of Gentle Fist in such a short period of time. Although Gentle Fist has not mastered it completely, she has already exceeded her goal with her talent. Even though she has no talent in combat, with a good teacher, she can still make up for some shortcomings in practice and avoid detours. Seeing that the time is about the same, at least when I wake up tomorrow, Hinata will not be immobilized due to excessive practice. Ryosuke patted her on the shoulder, and walked to her. It's almost here today. After a while, I think I can start learning some of the follow-up to 8 trigrams palms. You. He just opened his mouth to say something, but his voice stopped when he glanced at Hinata's face. Biting her lower lip tightly, her 2 small hands were on her lap, tightly entangled. Hinata's gaze was subconsciously staring ahead, and she didn't even notice that he had come in front of her. On the delicate and lovely face, the snow-white complexion brought by the blood of the Hyuga clan has already been dyed blush. Is this, dizzy? Ryosuke waved his hand in front of her uncertainly, feeling a little strange about the scene in front of him. Logically speaking, the current Hinata should not have the shy character in the original book. That kind of character has not been ingrained, and he has already pulled it out, but what is the situation now? Hinata! Hinata! Ryosuke called softly, but unfortunately it didn't help. Helpless, he could only raise the volume. And this voice finally awakened Hinata from that unconscious state. Her body trembled violently as if frightened, then stared at Ryosuke in front of her with wide eyes, and stood up quickly. What happened to me just now? I still want to ask you what's wrong. Ryosuke looked at her strangely. Whether it's the face or the delicate neck, every part of the skin has a faint blush. But obviously, judging from her movements and posture just now, she doesn't seem to be sick, nor was she injured in the battle just now. Since the change, Hinata, who has always been bold and confident, opened her mouth, but quickly closed it again, pursing her lips tightly and saying nothing. What's the matter? Did your body have any changes? Do you feel any discomfort? Ryosuke frowned and asked, opened his white eyes directly, and scanned her body. Whether it's chakra or the situation inside her body is very stable, the only thing worthy of attention is probably that the heartbeat is a bit violent. But there was a high-intensity battle just now, and it's normal for him to not recover for a while. However, it is obvious that Hinata's performance is very abnormal, so the more normal her body is, the more complicated the situation is. Ryosuke wondered whether Hinata's blood had also returned to his ancestors. After all, although her fighting talent was not very good, she had absolute advantages in white eyes and blood. This is also an important reason why she awakened the white eyes at this age. Even if ordinary Hyuga has stronger pressure, desire, and hard work, there is no way to awaken her pupil technique at such a young age. Ryosuke, actually Finally, under Ryosuke's nervous gaze, Hinata mustered up the courage to speak and looked at him seriously. Actually, I have already understood what a husband and wife are, and as your wife, what are my obligations? Her tone was very solemn, with unprecedented seriousness. Across from her, Ryosuke's tense expression froze. Is it just that? After hearing Hinata's words, this was the first thought in his heart. He thought that something big happened, but he didn't expect it to be like this. But soon, Ryosuke realized that this idea was only his own. Although things like marriage are not very important to the ninja world, many powerful ninjas do not have their own partners and die alone. Although it is not very important, it is also a thing worth devoting energy to in life. Especially for Hinata, who has not experienced brutal battles and is relatively naive although precocious in thinking, this may be a very important thing. I remember, Ryosuke asked me at the beginning, do I know what a husband-in-law is, and what kind of relationship is the relationship between me and you? At that time, I was still relatively ignorant and didn't understand these things. Regardless of Ryosuke's frozen expression, Hinata continued to speak. At that time, Ryosuke, you told me that if I knew what kind of relationship we have, I should tell you clearly. Now, I understand that although the school taught me a lot of skills to become a ninja, it also taught me a lot of knowledge other than ninja. The relationship between me and Ryosuke is a husband and wife relationship. We will always live together in the future, fight together, face death together, love each other, live and die together. Facing such a serious and solemn Hinata, Ryosuke stood in front of her, and the thoughts in his heart were more subtle. After all, although the person in front of him is his wife, she is a little girl who is not even 10 years old. In this world, everyone is particularly precocious, and there are no rules and standards in the previous life that adults are considered adults after the age of 18. Like Naruto and Sasuke, they are all young, only 16 or 17 years old, and they have become saviors and heroes who save the world. If this was in the previous life, what would a 16 or 17-year-old child do? Probably still in school, working hard for those grades. But here, it is common for teenagers to go to the battlefield and experience brutal wars. Even for ninjas with outstanding talents, it is common for them to go to the battlefield at a young age. In this world, age does not have a particularly large influence, and people with outstanding talents can completely ignore this. As for marriage, there are not many restrictions in this world, such as age. But generally speaking, considering the development of the body, most families will consider marriage at the age of 12 or 13, the age when the ninja school graduates. For this point, it is similar to Ryosuke's previous life, the situation in ancient times. But although there is no limit, after all, Ryosuke developed the three views in another world, which is still somewhat different from this world. End of this chapter. Chapter 54. Chapter 54. In the silent practice field, there was no sound. Beside the towering street lamp, there are two figures, one tall and one short. The bright yellow light was like fluorescent powder, falling on the two of them. Although the thoughts in Ryosuke's mind were complicated, less than a minute had actually passed. Facing the serious Hinata, he asked gently, "Do you really understand what a real husband and wife relationship is?" "I know, besides what the teacher taught, Ino also told me a lot." Staring helplessly, Hinata blushed and nodded, After we get married, we need to trust and depend on each other, and we have to give birth to a baby like Hanabi, and we have to do." "Okay, I know you understand." Interrupting her, Ryosuke didn't let her continue. It seems that the general precocity in this world is not only manifested in behavior and thought, but also in terms of S***X. But yes, there are many girls in the class who have been fighting openly and secretly for Uchiha Sasuke, including Yamanaka Ino and Harano Sakura. Hinata hangs out with them occasionally, and it's normal to know that. And in the class, if it weren't for the news that Ryosuke and Hinata are engaged to be public, maybe he would also be surrounded by quite a few girls. After all, his grades in school are not bad. Although his appearance is different from ordinary people, he is also very handsome. Such a high-quality boy is very attractive to those girls. But for these love affairs, it seems naive in this world. Many ninjas, usually only at this stage of school, will have the kind of strong desire for love. And once he graduates and accepts the baptism of cruel battles, these comfortable emotions will gradually fade away, replaced by the desire for strength. In fact, a long time ago, I knew what the real meaning of husband and wife is, and I also knew what the future life between me and you would be like. Looking at Hinata, who was quietly waiting for a response, Ryosuke said softly, "I want you to explain to me, I hope you can also understand what it means if we become husband and wife." His voice was gentle and subtle. But in this quiet practice field, it can clearly reach Hinata's ears. "The relationship between you and me was established by my father. He hoped that I could join the clan and become your husband-in-law, but..." Ryosuke paused, "But I hope that the relationship between you and me is not due to father's forcible interference, but by your own choice. Emotions are mutual. If you exclude the arrangement of your father and don't have the relationship you have already established, would you still choose to accept me, Hinata? Would you still be willing to stay by my side all the time? This is something I've been hesitating about. I don't want you in the future to regret this relationship. It takes a reason to like someone, and rational emotions can last long. Otherwise, liking is more of an impulse, a feeling. As for matters related to lifelong companionship like marriage, it is even more worthwhile to spend time thinking about it. Hinata was visibly taken aback by Ryosuke's question. She was a little overwhelmed. After she learned the meaning of the word husband and wife, she didn't even think about it. Would she and Ryosuke still be like this without her father's arrangement? I like Ryosuke very much, because Ryosuke is gentle and treats me very well. Without hesitating for too long, Hinata blurted out, with Ryosuke by my side, I feel very at ease. During the time when you were not around, I was very scared and insecure. Although I have been working hard to overcome it, although I have begun to adapt to going to school alone and facing my classmates alone, I still miss the time when Ryosuke was by my side. Because she didn't know how to answer, she could only show all her inner feelings in front of him. She told about the things they did together, every word Ryosuke said to her, how she really felt inside. But what's more, is the change in her heart in the past month. I always knew Ryosuke was good, much better than everyone in school. When I know the meaning of husband and wife and know the word to accompany each other, I really don't want to stand behind you, I want to stand by your side. During this period of time, I have worked very hard, not only to be a qualified patriarch, but also to satisfy you, to allow you to agree that I stand by your side. I am afraid that after explaining the meaning of husband and wife to you, you'll leave this useless me behind. She tried her best to explain her heart, waving her palms to express her thoughts from time to time. The blush on her body and the shy state began to dissipate slowly with her serious emotions, and her skin turned white again, but her expression became more and more serious. As for this scene, Ryosuke didn't interrupt, and listened to her every word quietly with a deadpan face. Until the end, when she stopped talking and stared at herself eagerly, waiting for an answer, she smiled again. The smile on his face was different from the usual self-disguise. This is the same as when he was expressionless, it is an emotional expression from the heart. He almost forgot that it turns out that a smile from the heart is such a feeling. Is that so? Is this your choice? Ryosuke's smile is easy, but also, complicated. Also with a solemn tone, he took a step forward and approached Hinata, bent slightly, and while gently resting his forehead on her forehead, he stretched out his hand to press her hair. In front of him was Hinata's flustered eyes. The tiny fluff swayed gently on her skin. Feeling her breath, apart from the smell of sweat after a high-intensity battle, Hinata's body also had a very light smell. It can't be said to be a fragrance, but this smell has a fatal attraction to Ryosuke, so he can't help but sniff his nose deeply. I can't make too many guarantees, but I will try my best to be a good husband and protect this family. Calmly looking at Hinata, who was close in front of me, and looking straight into her eyes, Ryosuke said seriously, it's not Hyuga's house, but this house of you, me, father, and Hanabi. I will protect it carefully. This kind of assurance, regardless of past life or present life, is the first time Ryosuke has spoken. He was an orphan and knew what it was like to be abandoned. In his previous life, he had a firm attitude towards things like marriage, and he would not give any guarantees when he was not sure if it was really suitable. So, he was always alone. But in this world, he felt the warmth of home like never before. This feeling made him very uncomfortable, but he also enjoyed it. From today, Hyuga Hinata, will you be my wife? He looked directly into Hinata's eyes and asked. Facing his question, Hinata, who had always been flustered because of being too close, calmed down inexplicably, and said in a firm tone, I am willing. End of this chapter. Chapter 55. Chapter 55 The Cunning Little Fox Ryosuke. Early in the morning, Ryosuke was just about to go to school after a long absence. But just after breakfast and coming to the door, Hinata, who hadn't seen him since getting up, hurried over from the yard on short legs, holding a black square box in his hand. Run slowly, you were so tired from practicing last night, you should rest more. No need to ask, just by smelling the subtle fragrance, Ryosuke knew it was probably a lunch box prepared for him. It's what you usually like to eat. Hinata handed him the bento with both hands, then stood there anxiously, as if waiting for something. Thank you Hinata for the bento. Ryosuke smiled softly, while taking the bento she handed over, he gently stroked her hair with the other palm, rest at home today, try to go to school tomorrow, let me see a good fight. Hinata said seriously, squinting her eyes comfortably, shaking her head unconsciously, rubbing Ryosuke's palm like a kitten. Since the first time she touched her head like this a year ago, she has enjoyed the feeling of being caressed. She could feel Ryosuke's tenderness from this movement. Especially last night, after she heard the words that made people feel safe. This action made her feel even more warm. Time passed bit by bit, Ryosuke did not speak again, and Hinata was not willing to speak. The two stood like this, maintaining this movement for a while. Ryosuke, you haven't gone to school yet. But at this moment, a very abrupt voice sounded, waking up Hinata, who was immersed in a sweet dream. It was Hanabi. Because she ate slowly, she happened to see the scene when she came out of the yard. What? She took a step back suddenly, as if she just remembered something, and looked at Ryosuke, who was still casual in front of her in a panic. Ryosuke, you are almost late. I know, you have a good rest. Ryosuke smiled and retracted the palms that stopped in mid-air, and greeted Hanabi behind him before leaving the house. The scene just now was very beautiful. Although he knew in his heart that he was about to be late, he didn't want to break the atmosphere. He himself enjoys it too. When I came to the school, the first theoretical course was almost over. Although it was late in the end, Irika didn't blame Ryosuke too much. This is the preferential treatment for good students. In the noisy recess, only the last row is quieter. It's been a month since we saw each other. Some people in the class haven't changed at all, but some people have changed a lot, like Naruto. Standing straight, with his hands folded on the table, he had a relaxed smile on his face. Although his appearance has not changed, Naruto's temperament and posture have changed in this month. Is Hinata taking leave today? He asked with a smile. Why, so familiar? Nodding casually, although Ryosuke was a little weird about this change in his heart, Kide was still very gentle. I was too tired from practicing last night, and I may need to rest for a day or two. Yeah, what a pity. Naruto stretched. I'm still looking forward to her fight with Inuzuka. The more he spoke, the weirder Ryosuke became. This feeling is too familiar, whether it is the tone of voice, movements, or even smile, they are all too similar to me. He felt that the changes in Naruto's behavior during this month made him move closer to himself. Forcibly suppressing the strange feeling in his heart, Ryosuke asked softly, did you also go to the training ground? After all, I want to become a ninja in the future. It is very important to accumulate combat experience. Naruto nodded, although no one is willing to practice duel with me, but when I go to watch the battle occasionally, they don't say anything. When he said this, the expression on his face was not as lost and bitter as before. Always keep a relaxed and sunny smile, as if you don't care about this matter. Without continuing to talk, Ryosuke quietly watched Naruto's expression. Although when he left before, he cast illusion on Naruto. If Naruto did something out of the ordinary and was captured by the third generation or other high-level officials in the village, he would forget some of the process of contacting Ryosuke and avoid being confessed when his memory was searched. But the specifics still have to be confirmed clearly. After a while, Ryosuke felt that the illusion he cast on Naruto through his eyes was always there, and then he said flatly, they are not here. There is no specific reference to who they are, but both Ryosuke and Naruto now know it. Ryosuke was able to detect them. Is it because of the white eyes? The moment he heard his words, Naruto's expression relaxed. Although it is a bit loose, it is not much different from before. It seemed that after those words, he understood that some people were secretly watching him, and he also realized that his position in this village was quite special. As long as I am willing to be a Hokage and aim to protect this village, Grandpa third generation will teach me many things. Seeing that Ryosuke did not answer his question, Naruto did not continue to ask, and continued on his own. Recently, he is teaching me to control my own chakra, and I have been working hard for a long time. The fox was in my body, and it had a great impact on my chakra. I had never been able to master ninjutsu before, and it was mostly because of this. And after the recent improvement in the control of chakra, his influence on me is also slowly decreasing. With a subtle expression, Ryosuke smiled, if you let Lord Third Generation know that you already know something, and you are approaching him with the intention of pleasing him and gaining his trust, you will be in danger. In the past month, Naruto's growth rate has been a little faster. Although because of this fox, my identity in the village is more sensitive. Naruto put his hands on his stomach, but Grandpa Third Generation is really good to me, and I don't want to lie to him, but I hope to be faster and have my own power. If he couldn't trust me, he wouldn't have taught me so many things. Why are you telling me this? Ryosuke asked, growing interested. Because you taught me so much, I choose to believe in you. Naruto replied with a chuckle. The smile on his face was almost exactly the same as that of Ryosuke. It's just that the emotional investment is not that deep yet, this smile is a bit fake, not sincere. I taught you? I don't remember what I taught you. The smile on Ryosuke's face had already made his eyes form a crescent. Before people have completed the development of the three views, although they will change rapidly because of their social circle and things they have experienced. But this change in Naruto made him feel very interesting. You asked me to go to Grandpa third generation, didn't you? There are a few whiskers on his cheeks, and now Naruto is like a cunning little fox. Actually, it's not incomprehensible for me to monitor me and isolate me. After all, if this guy really escapes from my body, most of Konoha will be severely damaged and many people will die. Although I don't like this village very much at present, but after all, this is the home where I was born and raised, and there are a few people I care about, so I am really willing to protect it. I am not cheating on this point. Grandpa third generation. End of this chapter. Chapter 56. Chapter 56 I did it. Naruto's change can be regarded as bringing a little fun to Ryosuke's ordinary life. Apart from cultivation, there are not many things that can interest him now. Even contacting the future Konoha pillars in the class didn't make him interested. Compared with being influenced by him, Naruto, who was exposed to the dark side in advance, including others other than Sasuke, is a bit too naive. No matter in terms of strength, character, or behavior, they are all a bit childish. Of course, this childishness is still relative to this world. But despite his interest, Ryosuke keeps his distance from Naruto. And Naruto, after realizing the significance of his existence to the village, also began to keep a distance from him, and no longer took the initiative to contact him as before. He knew that if he got too close to Ryosuke, he would kill him instead. Because he is the main family of Hyuga, representing the Hyuga clan. However, keeping a distance from each other does not mean that there is no contact all the time. Sometimes it is a day, sometimes it is a week. Naruto will always find an opportunity to pour out his heart to Ryosuke and share his progress with him. Ryosuke could see that he was really lonely. Compared with the carefree Naruto in the original book, who would approach the crowd with a stern face, this Naruto is obviously unwilling to put too much energy on communication, and he pays more attention to self-improvement. And that means, until now, his only friend is Ryosuke. Of course, because of Ryosuke, Hinata is kind to him too. This time, Hinata should win. In the noisy and sweaty practice field, there was only one place where no one approached. Ryosuke relies on the benefits that Naruto brings, so he doesn't have to be crowded with a lot of people. And in a place farther away, with the flat ground as the fighting environment, Hinata and Inuzuka stood opposite each other. If Inuzuka is still the same as last time, if he doesn't make any progress, he will lose. Ryosuke crossed his arms, looked at Hinata on the battlefield with a smile, and answered Naruto's question. Although theoretically, Hinata's strength is much stronger than Inuzuka's. After all, he has mastered Gentle Fist and Awakened Bun. He is superior to his peers in terms of physical fitness and chakra volume. But, the real battle is not just talking on paper, and Ryosuke's combat experience is not rich. There is no way to directly judge the outcome from the short-term confrontation with the enemy. It has been several months since he returned to the village, and Hinata has also started to challenge the boys of the same grade. She didn't choose those children from ordinary ninja families. Her goal was on the children of the family from the beginning. But for this, Ryosuke did not stop it. This goal is correct. With her ability to face those ordinary children, she will definitely not gain any gains and progress in the battle. But unfortunately, she didn't easily win her first battle in the boys' group as Ryosuke thought. She was entangled with Inuzuka Fang for several months just because of the first target. Fortunately, because of Hinata's resolute character, she was not discouraged and fought and failed repeatedly. The battle begins. Followed by the side, the student who acted as the referee gave orders. Hinata opened her eyes straight away, and rushed towards Inuzuka Fang. And Inuzuka is not afraid to start a close combat with Hyuga, rushing like a sharp sword. He is menacing and even runs faster than Hinata. The two figures quickly crisscrossed in the center of the field, raining palm strikes and ferocious claw strikes colliding together. The strong wind of fists and feet whistled, blowing up the dust nearby. Facing the claws hitting his body from time to time, Hinata suppressed the pain and launched a counterattack with no expression on his face. Although the two people in front of me fought back and forth, it was the result of Hinata's hard work over the past few months. You must know that when she challenged Inuzuka Tooth for the first time, she was beaten to the ground in a few rounds, and Gentle Fist was useless at all. It looks good, the technique is getting more and more proficient, and the handling is getting more and more calm. Ryosuke watched her movements with a chuckle and nodded in satisfaction. In the past few months, he feels that Hinata may have gained much more than a few years of penance. Inyazuka Tooth is not as weak as imagined, although because of his age, he has not mastered any family secrets, and even his ninja dog has not grown up. But as a family background, his strength and background are not much worse than Hinata. The Inyazuka clan is a family that raises ninja dogs and fights with ninja dogs. But this does not mean that their single strength is weak. When they fight with ninja dogs, sometimes they can't be regarded as one person and one beast, but two fierce beasts. Perhaps because they have been with the ferocious canine beasts for a long time, their family also has the same innate advantages as the beasts in terms of physique. Whether it is strength or speed, they are stronger than ordinary people, especially the five senses, which are almost like beasts, and the most powerful one is the sense of smell. However, these factors are not the reasons why Inyazuka has been able to beat Hinata in these few months. The most important point is that their family has a beast-like intuition. Most of their fighting methods rely on this intuition. Driven by instinct, Inyazuka was able to avoid most of the gentle fist's offense and use the injury-for-injury style of play to win. His bestial fighting instinct is exactly what Hinata lacks. Her nerve reaction speed is very slow, facing the enemy's counterattack, she always has no way to react quickly. This lack of ninja and fighting talent makes it impossible for Hinata to exert her own strength well in battle, so she can only rely on her own hard work and sweat to let her muscles form an instinctive response and let her body adapt fighting. This is a very stupid way. It is also the method that most ordinary people will use. Without talent, you can only rely on sweat to make up for it. But this process is of course effective. His background and ability are no worse than Inyazuka's teeth. What Hinata lacks is a way to exert his strength. And this challenge of more than a dozen times in the past few months has made her adapt to Inyazuka's fighting rhythm. Every time the battle is over, she can launch more counterattacks little by little in the next battle. She has worked hard to fight back and forth with Inyazuka, and even 8 trigrams, 2 palms. 8 trigrams, 4 palms. 8 trigrams, 32 palms. High-intensity, fast-paced combat is what the Inyazukas are known for, and Hinata, with their muscles, has memorized their rhythms. When she keeps up with this rhythm, when Inyazuka Tooth does not make great progress, and there is no new way of fighting, he can only lose. When Inyazuka was not paying attention, he was successfully entangled by Hinata's gentle fist, and the moment he didn't have time to change his injuries, he had already lost. Gentle fist's palm strike fell on his body fiercely, gentle fist chakra shot out from Hinata's hand, entered his body through various acupuncture points, and invaded his meridians. In the beginning, his chakra was truncated first. Then, the body began to become stiff and sluggish. When both chakra and speed change, the battle is decided. Thump! There was a dull impact sound. Even though he kept biting and didn't admit defeat, the stiffness in his body made Inyazuka Tooth helplessly fall to the ground. This battle was won by Hinata. At the expense of a few months, she has grown. Standing panting on the training ground, Hinata, who won the victory, did not enjoy the fruits of being a winner. Ignoring the cheers and congratulations from the people around her, she turned around, looked directly through the crowd, and found Ryosuke, who was standing with Naruto at the back. The four eyes are facing each other. Neither of them spoke, but they smiled at the same time. "I did it, Ryosuke." It seems that through this smile, Ryosuke heard Hinata's heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 57. Chapter 57 completed. Secret art. The days are uneventful. Almost every day is spent in practice. Whether it is Hinata or Naruto, under the arrival of Ryosuke, they have become different from the original timeline under his influence, possessing stronger abilities and relatively mature minds. While they've improved, Ryosuke certainly can't stand still. It has been several months since I left Konoha for Kyoto and met the daimyo. In the past few months, almost half of the time, Ryosuke took leave to practice alone at home. Only from time to time, I would go to school to observe other people's actual combat. After all, he planned to go to school at the beginning, just to make friends with the children of other families in the village. But then he found out that Hinata can also do this very well. Although in front of outsiders, her temperament has always been relatively high and cold, but based on her identity, her momentum and posture are extremely deterrent and attractive in the eyes of others. Many people are willing to chat with her and befriend the Hyuga she represents. As for the contact with other people, Hinata will not be as unreasonable as Suzuki, who is arrogant and cold. For everyone who is willing to take the initiative to contact and talk enthusiastically, although she is cold, she will give corresponding courtesy and respect. So at present, in terms of strength, although Hinata has some flaws for the time being, judging from her aura and the patriarch of a family, she already has a relatively complete embryonic form. This kind of change in her made people in the clan who were dissatisfied with their personalities begin to change a little bit. As long as she can grow up smoothly, she can undoubtedly become a qualified patriarch. This is a workout for Hinata. Simply, Ryosuke didn't care about these things anymore, but handed it over to Hinata. Sunny morning. Ryosuke, who had just sent Hinata to school, went straight to the training ground when he returned home. This time, he took a 1-month vacation in a row. The secondary reason is that the coercion he has been studying so hard has finally taken shape. Ryosuke closed his eyes tightly and stood quietly in a clearing in the forest, surrounded by dense and majestic ancient trees. Around his eye sockets, blue veins popped out one after another. Although his eyelids were closed, all the images around him were clearly reflected in his eyes and floated in his mind. Playful birds danced and glided among the branches. The worm in the soil struggled to twist its smooth body, trying to get out of the ground. The morning dew dripped on the leaves, and the lines on the leaves were clearly visible. These images are like live wallpapers on a computer screen, beautiful and serene. The chakra in Ryosuke's body surged wildly and converged towards the eye sockets. The picture in the eyes is clearer, and the range that can be seen is also more distant. The perception range covers 1/6 of the forest area. The huge information chain brought by the wide range of perception makes his mind spin rapidly, processing various senses conveyed by the outside world. Potential. Recalling the feelings of the past, a few days ago, the changes caused by that accidental success, and the feelings at that time were completely filtered in my mind. Ryosuke's spirit was raised to ultimate at this moment. At this moment, the unconsciously drooping arm exerted force, and the palms of the hands clenched into fists. His tightly closed eyes opened, and a gleam of light flashed in the blue-white pupils. Time seems to stand still at this moment. In the next second, everything changed dramatically before his eyes. Boom! Dull voices sounded from all directions. As far as Ryosuke's eyes can see, the gravity seems to change out of thin air, causing all objects, including living things, to feel the pressure, and then stagnate for a while after vibrating. Nearby, the birds and beasts that were playing happily, as if they were awakened, quickly fled the area with their little hooves. Even if some birds can't fly, they still run with their branch-like feet, as if there are some scourges in this forest. The scattered birds and beasts in the forest brought a lot of movement to the practice field. Only the trees, little changed. But some relatively fragile and subtle life forms, such as bugs, lost their voices directly under this vibration. Invisibly, Ryosuke deprived many lives. The chakra in his body was evacuated almost instantly, and several parts of his body couldn't stand the pressure, sending out tingling pain. Lying directly on the ground, Ryosuke stretched his limbs to make himself more comfortable, breathing heavily from his mouth and nose. But this exhaustion did not make Ryosuke feel any discomfort, but made him feel extremely excited. Because he succeeded. While exporting chakra, with the white eyes as the carrier and the invisible momentum as the interface, it spreads indiscriminate substantive coercion in all directions. And compared to the past, the coercion that was ineffective at times and ineffective, this time he managed to use it through his own consciousness. Although the preparation process is a bit long and there is no way to use it in battle for the time being, Ryosuke believes that this will be resolved soon. As for power, it is entirely because just now Ryosuke stretched his perception range as much as possible in order not to cause too much movement. Under the influence of the range, the power will become weaker. If this range is compressed, the power will increase accordingly. It's not easy. After resting for a while, the chakra in his body recovered a little, and Ryosuke straightened up and sat up from the lawn. In a year's time, knowing that the result is 1, the process of groping from 0 to 1 is really complicated. But after all, this is a secret technique based on the blood succession boundary, and it is much more difficult to develop than ordinary ninjutsu. However, like the Raise Nan that Namikaze Minato spent several years developing, Ryosuke doesn't know if Satsuki Kagaya uses the same coercion as him, but he knows very well that his coercion is still just an embryo. He still has a lot of ideas, to extend the secret technique he developed, to make this embryo grow up and become a more powerful secret technique. It's time for lunch. The joy brought by this kind of practice was high, but the emptiness in Ryosuke's body made him forcefully suppress the idea of continuing to be familiar with the secret art. Chakra is almost exhausted. Although he has taken a break and has physical activity, he still needs some food and rest. After all, during this period of time, he was still very dangerous. The secondary aspect of taking such a long time off from school is to familiarize yourself with my own secret arts, so there must be a major reason. And the main reason is that the progress bar in his mind is almost reaching its peak. Although it has been hovering at the 99% stage, there is a possibility of breaking through to 100% at any time, and he cannot predict what will happen at that time. Therefore, he tried his best to keep his body in a relatively stable state without any excessive situations. End of this chapter. Chapter 58. Chapter 58. The second metamorphosis. The progress bar in my mind is the biggest foundation of Ryosuke's future development. The progress bar was successful for the first time, which brought him the evolution of blood, which made him have the white eyes closer to the Tsutsuki clan. And now 3 years have passed. During these long 3 years, Ryosuke has experienced many things. Improve your abilities and develop the secret technique of blood succession boundary. Let his father look at him with admiration, give him trust and attention. In the middle of last year, when he was 5 years old, he went to ninja school with Hinata and raised a wife for himself. On the way to school, it slightly affected Naruto's character. Near the end of the year, I completed a task given by a clan, and arranged a real combat test for myself by the way. It doesn't seem like much, but in fact, it took him a lot of time to complete every task. But now, at the age of 6, he is finally about to usher in his second transformation. For the research on this progress bar, I have always taken it to heart. But no matter whether it starts with diet, or strengthens the intensity of practice, or even treats this progress bar as an experience bar to kill enemies and improve, there is no tendency for it to increase. As if, this experience bar is more like a timer, it will only grow over time. So at the end, Ryosuke didn't pay much attention to it. He just woke up every day to see what stage the progress had reached. In the recent period, this progress has finally come close to completion. In order not to allow his own transformation to be completed in the classroom or to the outside world, and expose his own differences, Ryosuke took a month off and waited for the transformation at home. Father, there is one more important thing that I need to explain to you in advance. After lunch, just as Hyuga Hayashi got up to go back to his study to work, Ryosuke stopped him. Come to the study. Hyuga Hayashi's footsteps stopped for a moment, he turned his head and glanced at him, and after leaving a word, he started walking again. After he left, Ryosuke and Hanabi were the only ones left in the cafeteria. Ryosuke looked at Hanabi, who was sitting on a special elevated chair at the dining table, holding a small spoon and stuffing it into his mouth. Hanabi, eat slowly, Aunt Aoyang will come to accompany you later. His mouth was full of rice, and Hanabi's cheeks were bulging like a hamster. She could only nod her head obediently, her mouth no longer able to speak back. Amusingly picked up a tissue and helped her wipe off the rice grains around her mouth, Ryosuke left the cafeteria. First he came to the kitchen and called the butler Aoyang to accompany Hanabi before he walked towards the study. Boom boom boom. Knocking on the wooden door of the study, Hyuga Hayashi's voice came from inside. Opening the door and walking in, my father was already sitting at the desk, waiting for his arrival. As soon as he sat down, Hyuga Hayashi on the opposite side couldn't wait to ask, is it about cultivation? Although he doesn't know the details, he can still guess a little bit from the fact that Ryosuke asked for leave. Right. Ryosuke nodded, actually. I have a little physical problem recently. In an instant, at the moment when these words were spoken, he could clearly feel the strong emotional fluctuations in his father. What happened? He frowned and asked in a low voice. I can feel that my body will change in the near future, just like the white of my eyes changed a few years ago. Ryosuke explained with a chuckle, but it's not necessarily bad news. Variety. Hyuga Hayashi froze with a frown, you mean, go back to the ancestors again? But soon, he denied this idea, but your supercilious ability is already at the same stage as the founder of the Hyuga clan in the history recorded by Hyuga. Although you haven't fully grown up yet, you have the power to destroy the world and destroy the earth in the records, but you can already see through the future. If you return to your ancestors again, maybe you shouldn't say return to your ancestors, but evolution. Hyuga Hayashi's expression suddenly became eager. Returning to the ancestors is a change that occurs when the bloodline is extremely superior, and regains the ability that only the ancestors had. But now, Ryosuke's situation should not be said to be returning to his ancestors. In terms of ability, he is likely to surpass his ancestors and get further evolution. Maybe. Ryosuke's smile was a little awkward. In fact, strictly speaking, his white eyes are slightly inferior to the real Tsutsuki now. After all, in fact, he has not yet mastered the ability to see through the future. This is just Ryosuke's nonsense to fool his father in order to make up for his understanding of the plot. But this is not important, for the time being, he himself does not understand what kind of changes his transformation will bring to his body. Big, about what time? Hyuga Hayashi suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked in a low voice. But his words still couldn't stop trembling. It was such a thing that excited him so much. As the contemporary patriarch of the Hyuga clan, it is too difficult for him to restrain his emotions when there is a junior like Ryosuke who surprises him from time to time. Ryosuke's bloodline has evolved and transformed time and time again, which means that his daughter will have the possibility of inheriting this talent in the offspring born with him in the future. The rise of the Hyuga clan will start from his generation. I couldn't have predicted that. Ryosuke said helplessly, that's why I asked for leave recently to stay at home, just to avoid the situation that I'm outside when something goes wrong. Then stay at home. Going to school is meaningless to you anyway. You can teach Hinata to do the things you said. She has really improved a lot recently. Hyuga Hayashi mentioned Hinata, and his tone became a little strange. The daughter he despises, after losing his control, has the possibility of rising, which makes him doubt his own education methods. The main reason I'm looking for you today is because during the process of change, I may have a certain degree of abnormality, so I'll let you know in advance, so that you won't be worried when it happens. Ryosuke stated the purpose of this explanation. During the first metamorphosis, he was someone who was out of the limelight, so it didn't matter. But now for the second time, his identity is already in the Hyuga clan, and he is the son-in-law that Hyuga Hayashi cares about the most. If there is any abnormality in his body within the clan area, it will undoubtedly attract Hyuga Hayashi's attention. So Ryosuke needs to report the possible situation in advance, lest. As soon as he thought of this, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart, and the chakra all over his body was boiling in his body like scorching magma. With little hesitation, he closed his eyes. He didn't know when, the progress bar in his mind had reached 100%. Transformation begins at this moment. End of this chapter. Chapter 59. Chapter 59, 3 days plop plop. The violent beating of his inner heart rang in Ryosuke's ears. In addition to the beating of his heart, he could even hear the sound of blood flowing in his body like a rolling Yangtze River. The sound of bones creaking. The sound of internal organs gurgling. These extremely subtle sounds, which only existed inside his body, were infinitely amplified in his mind. This sudden physical change made Ryosuke covered in uncontrollable pain before he had time to say anything. What's wrong, Ryosuke? In blurred vision, Ryosuke could see Hyuga Hayashi across a desk, appearing beside him in the blink of an eye. His expression was flustered, and the tone of his mouth was full of worry. And the chair he was sitting on seemed to be blown away by the huge movement, and hit the wall further back, scattered into several logs and planks. No wonder why Ryosuke can perceive the surrounding environment so well while enduring severe pain. At some point, his white eyes opened involuntarily at the moment when his body changed. Even if he doesn't want to be aware of the surrounding environment, he just wants Ishin to face the changes in his body and there is nothing he can do. All the situation is like a piece of data code, which is forced into his mind, so that he has to devote some attention to deal with it. Lying on the ground, Ryosuke clenched his fists and curled up into a ball. Beside him, Hyuga Hayashi, who was usually stern and serious, has disappeared, replaced by a tense face. He squatted beside him a little helplessly. His eyes were already open, and he could see the horrible situation in Ryosuke's body, but he couldn't do anything about it. The two arms froze in midair. He didn't know whether to find a medical ninja, but he didn't dare to move because he was afraid of disturbing Ryosuke. This is the first time that Hyuga Hayashi has seen Ryosuke show such an expression. Usually, this precocious and reassuring child always had a calm smile. The situation in front of him made him feel a little tormented. After all, this was the child he had watched grow up. Although he was not his own, he was also his son-in-law. And Ryosuke's weight in his heart is no less than Hinata, no less than the family, and more. Come on, Ryosuke. With nothing to do, Hyuga Hayashi just squatted aside silently, cheering Ryosuke up. And Ryosuke, he's in pain right now. It's completely different from the first metamorphosis. When the progress bar reached full value for the first time, his pain was more in the eyes, and it didn't last long, and the change process ended in less than half a day. But this time was different. This time not only his eyes were swollen and painful as if they were about to burst, but he was experiencing tearing pain all over his body. Not only around the eye sockets, the veins were exposed due to the opening of the white eyes, but in many places on his body, the veins were exposed due to excessive force. Sweat had already soaked his clothes, and his pale hair looked like seaweed floating on the water. But instead of yelling to release the pain in his heart, Ryosuke gritted his teeth and endured the pain. Although part of his mind was affected by the surrounding environment, most of his thoughts were still paying attention to the changes in his body. As time went by, the pain intensified, and the changes in the body caused by this metamorphosis became more and more significant. Mental and physical strength is increasing. The flexibility and strength of the limbs are also changing. The ability of Bun has been improved, and it is more significant than last time, and the range of perception has been significantly expanded. If there is any emotion that can make Ryosuke ignore the pain under such severe pain, it is the excitement of watching his strength improve rapidly in a short time. The emotions of joy and excitement were high, and he clearly felt the changes in himself, and Ryosuke suddenly felt that the pain was reduced a lot. He is not a person with special quirks, but he doesn't mind if this kind of pain can lead to an increase in strength. Originally, in the eyes of Hyuga Hayashi, Ryosuke, who was in pain, seemed to be enduring unbearable pain, suddenly seemed to have signs of improvement. Although he still clenched his fists tightly, as if he was using all his strength to fight against this change, the emotion in his eyes was clearly different from the pain just now. When the situation in Ryosuke's body stabilized, 3 days had passed. Time passed quickly. Although he didn't know the details, the interlacing of day and night in the outside world made him understand how many days had passed. During these 3 days, his father was by his side almost all the time. The scope of the study is strictly forbidden for anyone to enter, including Hinata and Hanabi. Every time he eats, he will send food to the house by means of shadow clone. Although Ryosuke doesn't have the ability to eat every time, the meals are always non-stop, and they are more abundant every time. All in all, no matter how long it took for Ryosuke to transform, Hyuga Hayashi kept guarding for as long as he could, almost never leaving his body, and his body was even more tense, in order to deal with emergencies at any time, without any slack. It seems, it's over. Ryosuke's curled-up body began to slowly unwind. In Hyuga Hayashi's eyes, he was struggling to get up from the ground little by little. Half squatting in a horse stance, with his hands on his knees, he straightened his back little by little. Bean-sized sweat slid down Ryosuke's cheek drop by drop and dripped onto the ground. But on his face, the old smile returned, and this time the smile was brighter than ever before. I seem to have become a lot stronger. A hoarse, dry voice sounded from Ryosuke's mouth. Although the pain still has lingering power, the huge changes in the body are slowly subsiding, the various organs are beginning to resume normal operation, and the flow of blood has also slowed down. Everything in his body is slowly returning to calm. What do you want to eat? I'll get you a glass of water. Hyuga Hayashi asked nervously. Thank you, father, I am indeed a little hungry. Ryosuke nodded gratefully and said that without eating for 3 days, even ordinary people would feel hungry, not to mention that he also experienced a transformation that broke through the limit in the process. Call me if you have anything to do. I'll go to Aoyang to prepare it for you. Hyuga Hayashi hurriedly said, but he had disappeared in the room. He even uses the body flicker technique to move, covering chakra on the soles of his feet to increase his speed. In Hyuga Hayashi, the caring love that was not good at expressing, or was embarrassed to express, has been wiped out in these 3 days. The feeling of being cared for was comforting, and Ryosuke relaxed his body in a soothing way. While speaking, the changes in the body have completely stabilized. In his mind, the progress bar had already returned to 0 again. If there were no accidents, the next transformation should be 3 years later, that is, when he was 9 years old. End of this chapter. Chapter 60. Chapter 60 Hard work pays off. The end of the metamorphosis is at noon. After eating and drinking for a while, Ryosuke took a comfortable bath and came to the training ground. And Hyuga Hayashi also took advantage of this short time to rest for a while. In the past few days, he didn't blink for a few seconds, just sitting in the study, guarding Ryosuke. Afternoon. Hyuga Hayashi has been waiting for a long time in the practice field exclusive to the Hyuga clan. With a pair of dark circles under his eyes, although he was mentally exhausted, he asked impatiently, "How is it? Has your body changed?" Hyuga Hayashi is the one who witnessed the whole process of Ryosuke's transformation, and it's still in the state of rolling his eyes. Honestly, the process is amazing. There is no process of practice and exercise, but under this change, Ryosuke seems to have independent consciousness in every organ of his body, and begins to improve himself. Almost every second, he could feel Ryosuke's physical intensity changing. But specifically, Hyuga Hayashi still wants to hear Ryosuke's feelings. "Let me give you an answer through actual actions," Ryosuke said with a chuckle, and in the next second, his body had disappeared from Hyuga Hayashi's eyes. With little hesitation, Hyuga Hayashi opened his eyes, and only then did he see Ryosuke's figure tens of meters away. Pure physical speed. He quickly saw what Ryosuke called a change. He didn't take advantage of Chakra's boost, but his pure physical speed now has the same level as Chakra's boost. The next moment, when the chakra in Ryosuke surged and flowed in the body, and began to increase the various functions of the body, his speed increased again by a few points. His figure disappeared before Hyuga Hayashi's eyes again. Frowning, he poured more chakra into the white of his eyes. When Hyuga Hayashi's white-eyed vision expanded several times to the limit that his eyes could bear, Ryosuke was captured again. And this means that in the next actual combat training with Ryosuke, he will have to show 100% of his strength and face the battle seriously, so as to ensure that he will not lose in the battle. Boom! At this moment, in the dense forest of the practice field, a towering ancient tree was directly blasted off from the tree like a warning sign that was pushed down. The dust was flying. Among the scattered birds and beasts, Ryosuke slowly retracted his numb shoulders. For this attack, he also relied on pure physical strength. Each of these ancient trees has a history of more than 100 years, and its hardness is far beyond that of those seedlings. But it was so easy, he smashed the tree directly with pure physical strength, without chakra or any blessing of ninjutsu power. Slowly twisting his shoulders, Ryosuke could feel how huge the shock force from the impact just now was. For the blow just now, he didn't use fists or elbows, which are parts of the human body with stronger bones. Instead, in the process of testing strength, I tested the strength of the flesh by the way. He directly relied on his body to hit the tree, and he didn't use any power skills in the process. And under such circumstances, only a few traces were left on the surface of his body, while the internal muscles, bones, and meridians were not greatly affected, only slightly numb. Speed and strength have been improved, as has physical strength. Ryosuke stretched his body. Unlike the first metamorphosis, where only the white eyes and blood vessels changed, this time, not only his eyes have changed, but his body has also changed to a large extent. The next thing is, the white eyes. Turning around and looking back, Ryosuke's white eyes directly penetrated the forest in front of him, and saw Hyuga Hayashi beyond the forest. Looking at each other, he nodded slightly, opened his mouth and said a word silently. "Please step back." In the distance, facing his words, Hyuga Hayashi was obviously stunned for a moment, then backed up 100 meters, and entered a state of combat readiness in order to deal with unexpected situations. In his vision, Ryosuke closed his eyes after seeing him getting ready. Boom! Before Hyuga Hayashi could figure out what he wanted, the roar was deafening. The nearby birds and beasts scattered and fled amidst the roar. With Ryosuke as the center, all the trees and land within a radius of 100 meters seemed to be crushed by a meteorite falling from the sky at this moment, and they are half shorter out of thin air. And all the living creatures in this area, whether it be hares, insects, or even birds in the sky, all turned into puddles of bloody mud in an instant. God, a miracle! Hyuga Hayashi stared at everything in front of him dumbfounded. It all happened so fast with little warning, he didn't even have time to observe the changes of chakra in Ryosuke's body. This kind of power is like the destructive power possessed by ninjas in ancient times in the historical records of Hyuga. In recent years, only two brothers, Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, have possessed such godlike power. Sure enough, both Uchiha and Senju have them, how could Hyuga not have them? Hyuga Hayashi looked at Ryosuke with eager eyes. In the forest, Ryosuke opened his eyes, seeing devastation. He raised his hands and looked at his palms. There is still chakra left in the body, and everything in front of him is the power after compressing the range of perception. But coercion is more fluid. Could it be, am I really walking the same path as Tsutsuki Kagaya? Ryosuke frowned, feeling a little confused. He had expected that his eyes would change after the metamorphosis. But the aspect of improvement is in the proficiency of the existing abilities he has mastered, which really made him unexpected. Nowadays, whether it is illusion or coercion, it is smoother than before, as if after a long time of running in. No, none of these transformations have anything to do with Tsutsuki Kagaya. But soon, Ryosuke dismissed the idea. How can there be such a coincidence? Just as soon as he thought about it, he embarked on the old path of Tsutsuki Kagaya, and it was still two different techniques of illusion and coercion. In this case, the progress bar in his mind is aimed at, perhaps not his own blood, but his own ability. Perhaps just like what he thought at the beginning, this progress bar is more like a limiter, and when the limit is reached, it will help him untie the limit to a certain extent. Or the improvement of blood vessels, perhaps mastered techniques, and physical strength. But the actual ability needs to be mastered by himself. For example, illusion and coercion, he spent time and energy developing them all by himself, so after his transformation, his use of these two techniques has been improved. Even the strength of the body has improved. On the other hand, when he transformed for the first time, he had not experienced intensive training, but only paid special attention to the pupil technique, so he transformed, and got the improvement of blood and the white eyes that are closer to Tsutsuki. End of this chapter. Chapter 61. Chapter 61. Uchiha is gone 3 years as a cumulative process. And the efforts made in the cumulative process will determine the final result. This is a progress bar where only hard work pays off. If you don't work hard, the possible transformation will be very small. This is the second metamorphosis. Ryosuke speculates about the progress bar in his head. Of course, whether it is actually true or not depends on the third transformation before a conclusion can be drawn. But this time, during the 3 years of practice, Ryosuke will pay attention to the direction of his efforts and the direction of his effort, and see if there will be a big gap between the two. How do you feel? Seeing Ryosuke coming out of the dead forest, Hyuga Hayashi hurriedly stepped forward and asked, would the surgery just now be a heavy burden on the body? Any use of power will have a certain price. According to the records in the history of Hyuga, during the Sengoku period, Uchiha Madara was blind for a period of time after awakening Manjiki Sharingan. It is suspected that after awakening Manjiki, the body could not bear the burden of consumption. Although I don't know how he solved this problem later, Hyuga Hayashi is very afraid that this kind of thing will happen to Ryosuke. After all, the way to evolve beyond and possess new abilities, after thousands of years, only Ryosuke in the Hyuga family can do it. Father, don't worry, I feel fine. Apart from the consumption of chakra, there is no other burden on my body. Ryosuke replied with a chuckle. Although the noise was huge just now, the chakra in his body has not been completely consumed. In other words, even if he does it again now, he can definitely do it. In this transformation, the body and spirit have been enhanced, and the ability to roll eyes has also been increased, which means that the amount of chakra has also been improved. Ryosuke's current amount of chakra is about 3 times that of before, which has surpassed the level that ordinary ninjas should have. You should pay more attention when you use white eyes. But Hyuga Hayashi is obviously worried about this. Many diseases caused by blood inheritance boundaries are accumulated in some small details. You should pay more attention. If one day those small burdens accumulate and explode, I'm afraid your body won't be able to bear it. Ryosuke nodded, I understand. He probably knows better than Hyuga Hayashi how terrifying the so-called blood-inherited disease is. Whether it is dead bone pulse, ice escape, or blood successors such as Sharingan and Rinnegan, there are obvious sequelae of blood successors. So there is no need for Hyuga Hayashi to say much, he will pay attention. In the past, during every training session, he paid great attention to the changes in his body when using Byon, but with enough chakra, using Byon did not bring any burden to his body. Both visually and physically. Let's go back first, it's about time to rest. Hyuga Hayashi scanned Ryosuke up and down with his white eyes again, and closed his white eyes after confirming that there was no problem. In the past few days, I, like you, have never closed my eyes. Go back and rest quickly, there is still some time before eating. Ryosuke nodded, also rolling his eyes back. One tall and one short, 2 figures slowly walked out of the practice field. As for the commotion caused by Ryosuke just now, someone will naturally clean up. I won't eat dinner. I have to get up to deal with some things I have accumulated recently. I may have to stay up all night tonight. Let's eat after I get up. Hyuga Hayashi looked very tired, and his walking posture was not the same as before, straight, slightly loose. Let's get up tomorrow and deal with it. Ryosuke looked at him worriedly. It takes mental energy to deal with these things. If you don't rest well, it will have a great impact on your body. If it's just something trivial, I can put it off until tomorrow. Hyuga Hayashi's exhausted expression slowly returned to seriousness. He turned his head to look at Ryosuke. Just a few days after your transformation, the Uchiha clan was wiped out, and you will never guess who the murderer is. Uchiha Itaki. The smile on Ryosuke's face restrained, but he spit out a name without hesitation. As for this point, Hyuga Hayashi, who wanted to make a fuss, paused, but soon laughed helplessly. Yet, your eyes can see, but why don't you try to stop this thing happened? Although Uchiha is our long-standing competitor, their extermination is not necessarily a good thing for us. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Ryosuke smiled at Kide. We, Hyuga, should not get involved in this matter. Father, please go to bed early, and get up tomorrow to deal with those matters. Before they knew it, they had already arrived at the door of the house from the practice field. Okay, listen to you. Hyuga Hayashi hesitated for a moment, then nodded. However, I want to remind you that it's not that simple behind this matter. Maybe there will be shadows of other people in the village. Regarding this matter, the intelligence materials sent by the tribe are already in my study. You can go and have a look. In the future, you don't need to report to me the things in the study, you can read them casually. In the highest row of the third bookshelf, there is a hidden door in the innermost part, which contains some important information. You should pay attention to the red and black two parts. Roll. Okay. Ryosuke nodded. After entering the house, Hyuga Hayashi went back to the room to rest. And neither his spirit nor his body was exhausted by the torment of this period of time, but he was radiant because of the transformation. Hinata hasn't come home yet, he thought for a while, but instead of playing with Hanabi, he went directly to the study. Following his father's prompt, Ryosuke found the secret door on the third shelf. Inside the secret door, there are several scrolls of different colors. Without other colors, he directly took out the black scroll and the red scroll that his father said. Go down the elevated ladder and come to the desk. He sat down where his father used to sit, and turned on the desk lamp. First spread out the red scroll and place it on the table. At first glance, what Ryosuke saw was the four big characters Sarutobi Hiruzen. The smile on his face grew wider. Sure enough, the intelligence about some high-level people in the village was definitely not as simple as what Ryosuke had come into contact with before. What he read through the information chain before were all well-known little things. And on this scroll, everything is recorded in detail about 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen from studying in the ninja school, until graduating from the school to learn from 2nd Hokage, and becoming 3rd Hokage, and so on. Regarding this record, the first collator was Ryosuke's technically grandpa, Hyuga Hayashi's father. The content of these records is very messy, mixed with some views and opinions of the two collators. However, these views and opinions have been changing. Sometimes they think that Sarutobi Hiruzen is a hero who is willing to give everything for the village, but sometimes, he becomes a selfish hypocrite. End of this chapter. Chapter 62. Chapter 62 The bystander's perspective. There is no absolute right or wrong in the world, there are only different positions. Under the light, Ryosuke sat at his father's usual office desk, pressing his fingers on the scroll, sliding down as he read. I don't know when it started. He is used to looking at affairs from the perspective of a bystander, which will allow him to understand the essence of things more clearly and make corresponding and correct judgments based on his own situation. As the Hokage of the village, Sarutobi Hiruzen has made many decisions, some good and some bad. He made the decision to sacrifice the lives of a few people in exchange for victory in the war. There have also been cases of leading the village to fight with its back, and even leaving a suicide note in advance, preparing to sacrifice itself. But if you look at the decisions he made from the perspective of a bystander, who doesn't know the results, in fact, most of the cases are for the benefit of the village. Although these decisions are not necessarily good things for Hyuga. But these records are incomplete. The victory or defeat of many battlefields always lacks some important points at critical moments, and lacks a little bit of bargaining chip that can determine the outcome of the battle. A Wonderful Life. Ryosuke read at a very fast speed. After reading every word, it took less than half an hour. There was a lot of information, but he had memorized it all. Then next, he set his sights on the black scroll, but without opening it, he already knew who the scroll corresponded to. When opened, and with little surprise, the corresponding name on this scroll is Shimura Dan's. This is a name that only a few people remember in the village. When most people mention this name, their first reaction is that they don't know it. But if you talk about the history of Konoha village in detail, and talk about the strong men who galloped on the battlefield in the past, someone will probably think of his name and what he did. If we say that Sarutobi Hiruzen is a moderate faction who considers issues steadily from the perspective of the village, then Shimura Dan's is definitely a radical who is willing to put the village in an extremely dangerous environment in exchange for greater benefits to the village. He is a very capable man, but also an extremely dangerous man. Now on the other side of the desk is about the recent extermination of the Uchiha family. As someone who knows the future, Ryosuke knows that Shimura Dan's is behind this matter. Uchiha is a major force in the village. In the absence of major combat forces within Konoha, even if they are unstable, Sarutobi Hiruzen will still try to consider a way to get the best of both worlds. But Shimura Dan's won't, he can't tolerate anything that is bad for the village. Since this combat power is unstable, it is very likely that Konoha will be beaten back when Konoha is in danger, so just clean it up while Konoha still has strength. This Shimura Dan's doesn't seem to care about the effect on Konoha after losing this power. From his past performance, and what he may do in the future, Ryosuke thinks he may have a psychology. That is, as long as he is there, nothing will happen to Konoha. But he does have the capital of arrogance. Looking carefully at Shimura Dan's past, Ryosuke can compare with his intelligence information many missing places in Sarutobi Hiruzen's data. From the late period of the First Ninja World War, when Sarutobi Hiruzen took office as Third Hokage, the Second Ninja World War and the Third Ninja World War, in these three wars involving the entire ninja world, there were several battles, large and small. 100 times. And many of them, the battles that Konoha should have lost, won the victory inexplicably. As an important bargaining chip in deciding the battle situation in these processes, Ryosuke is not seen in Sarutobi Hiruzen's record scroll. However, a lot is known in Shimura Dan's record scrolls, although many of them are disgraceful. At the end of the First Ninja World War, after the sacrifice of Second Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen took up the banner and joined forces with his contemporary partners Shimura Dan's, Mitokado Homura, Yuditen Koharu, Akamichi Takekaze, and Uchiha Kagami to counterattack Cloud Shinobi Village. In the end, they won the battle and established their own status and the short-term stability of Konoha Village. In the course of this war, Shimura Dan's used the lives and supplies of some Konoha shinobi participants, alienated Wu Ying and Rock Shinobi, and let them kill each other. They had no time to attack Wood while they were at war with Cloud Shinobi. Leave. This was a trick, but it was a dishonorable trick, so he didn't get any awards and merits. The Second Ninja World War and the Third Ninja World War, the victory and the end of these wars all have his shadow behind them. He is like the dark side of Sarutobi Hiruzen, carrying all the negativity. So, he does have the ability to be arrogant. However, compared to Sarutobi Hiruzen who lives in the sun, there is very little information about Shimura Dan's. Even the information chain of the two generations of the Hyuga family has only collected a little bit, so Ryosuke actually doesn't know much, and he can't be sure that his guess is correct. This is the real ninja world. Compared with the memory, seeing the world from the perspective of the cheerful Naruto, what Ryosuke sees now is more comprehensive and much more real. The saying that all politicians are dirty is not casual. Perhaps from the perspective of the common people of Konoha village, or those who are on the same road as Sarutobi Hiruzen, who are willing to sacrifice everything for the village, Sarutobi Hiruzen is a good leader. His existence protects the interests of the majority and enables the majority to live in a relatively stable living environment. But for those people and families whose own interests have been violated, and even their lives are endangered, then he is a hypocrite through and through. He is a person who can only smile brightly in front of most people. However, Ryosuke can also understand this point. After all, there is no way to take everyone into account in the completion of many things. As a leader, he can only choose the majority. It's much more complicated than I imagined. Fortunately, I didn't get involved in this matter. After knowing the things in front of him, Ryosuke became more and more sure of his decision. Anyway, he is not familiar with Uchiha. Uchiha Itachi has not met a few times, and Uchiha Sasuke puts a bad face on him every day. Even in the future, Uchiha has no threat to the village, and he does not intend to contact the orphan Uchiha Sasuke. As for, what he and Hyuga Hayashi had been worried about all the time. Without Uchiha as a check and balance, they would not be suspected of Hyuga's dominance, but now Ryosuke is not worried at all. I don't know if it's because there are more and more things to consider recently. Ryosuke has become more and more familiar with it, looking at things from the perspective of a bystander. Those things that he used to worry about, when he looked at them from the identity of the Hyuga clan, he suddenly felt that they were not so complicated. For example, their Hyuga clan's current status in the village. End of this chapter. Chapter 63. Chapter 63. Hyuga's situation. Uchiha is a strong unstable factor, and the clan is plotting a coup d'état in an attempt to return to Konoha's power center. Shimura Dans, who can't stand the slightest bit of sand in his eyes, can't tolerate this kind of thing, and Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is third Hokage, can't tolerate it either. Therefore, even though he didn't want Konoha to lose such a powerful combat power, he kept hesitating. But for Denzo's actions, he undoubtedly acquiesced. In this village, Anbu is everywhere, and his eyeliner is everywhere. Some important people, such as who Naruto contacts every day, he knows very well, let alone Denzo, who is more important than Naruto. You must know that in Sarutobi Hiruzen's heart, although he relies on Denzo, he is also wary of Denzo. But Sarutobi Hiruzen can tolerate Denzo's attack on Uchiha, which doesn't mean he can tolerate the decline of Hyuga, the only pupil family in the village. When Ryosuke looked at Hyuga and Konoha from the perspective of a bystander, he found that the situation of the Hyuga clan was not as complicated as he and his father imagined. In the outside world, there are countries that have always been interested in the Kingdom of Fire. However, the inside of Konoha has been consuming combat power. Whether it is the death of 4th Hokage or the extermination of Uchiha, it has had a great impact on the village. Hyuga is not the same as Uchiha. Although their family is proud of their outstanding talents, they are relatively low-key and easygoing when they come into contact with the people in the village. Although the Hyuga clan also had the idea of invading the center of power in the village, they kept it well hidden. As for the people in the branch house, because they are called caged bird, they cannot have free thoughts like Uchiha. When Hyuga Hayashi gave orders and requests to be kind to the rest of the village, they had to do so. Under such circumstances, their image of Hyuga in the village is well maintained. It is also for this reason that they have not been driven to the outskirts of the village like Uchiha, but have always been in the center of the village and are admired by many villagers. Not to mention the attitude of the common people in the village towards Hyuga, even many ninjas in the village have received the favor of Hyuga. You must know that the role of White Eyes on the battlefield is very huge, and it can play a role in deciding the situation of the battle. Many ninjas have been saved by Hyuga, and many victories were won because of Hyuga's perception ability. As a powerful family in the village, Uchiha may be exterminated, and everyone may applaud, but if something happens to Hyuga, most people are still quite worried. Hyuga is equivalent to the eyes of Konoha. Without these eyes, many advantages will be lost in the future battlefield. Therefore, under such circumstances of external and internal troubles, the status of their family is still relatively high. As long as they maintain the stability and kindness in the past, although Konoha will be afraid of them, in fact, they will not attack them, because there is no reason. Konoha village does not tolerate geniuses or the strong, but those unstable factors and those who want to engage in individualism instead of considering the interests of the group. Even if there is, there can only be Shimura Dans, because Sarutobi Hiruzen is confident that he can catch him. Under the desk lamp, Ryosuke's face was expressionless, and his eyes were a little cold. When all the intelligence materials are gathered in his mind and he thinks about sorting out these situations, he needs to maintain absolute reason. The best judgment can only be made if you don't mix any personal feelings, stand in any angle, and don't consider yourself as Hyuga. Thump thump. The high-speed thinking was interrupted, and the white eyes suddenly opened. Ryosuke's indifferent eyes directly penetrated the wooden door and saw the situation outside the house. Afterwards, his indifferent gaze slowly retracted and became soft. Coming! Ryosuke shouted to the people outside the house, and he heard it. Quickly put away the two scrolls and put them back to their original places. He turned off the lamp and went to the door. Gently turning the door handle, Ryosuke opened the door. Outside the house, the girl's long lavender hair fluttered with the airflow when the door opened. Hinata's eyes widened and she raised her head high to watch Ryosuke's face. Ryosuke, you've grown taller. Seeming to be naturally alert to the study, her voice became quieter and her tone was extremely cautious. Although it was only 3 days, it seemed like it had been a long time since we hadn't seen each other. Something happened recently, and I have grown a lot taller. Ryosuke lowered his head, looked at Hinata, who was a head shorter, chuckled kide, and reached out to pat her small head. Then, he turned his gaze to the night outside the house, so it's already night. There are no windows in the study room, and only the desk lamp provides the light source in the dim room. He was immersed in his thoughts and did not develop his perception. He didn't realize that it had passed so much just now. With half-closed eyes, Hinata enjoys petting like a kitten. Aunt said you have been out once, let me ask you if you have dinner. Certainly. Ryosuke nodded, retracted the palm on her head and walked outside. And behind him, Hinata seemed to be in a good mood, bouncing along beside him. What have you been doing these days? My father won't let us see you, and won't tell us why. Hanabi and I are very worried about you. Because the practice has reached a relatively important stage, I need a relatively quiet environment to do some insights. I'm sorry that I didn't explain it to you in advance, which made you worry. It's okay. But during your absence, a lot of things happened in school. That Uzumaki Naruto turned out to be so good. In the recent practical course, he won the first place. I can't even beat him. But the main thing is that Uchiha Sasuke didn't attend class, and something seems to happen at home. While chatting and listening to Hinata tell interesting things about the school, they walked towards the cafeteria. Did Naruto take the first place? Ryosuke was a little surprised. After all, he had never fought against Naruto, let alone watched him make a move. His impression of him is temporarily limited to the tail of the crane in the original book, and the top 3 theoretical courses in the current timeline. Although he knows that Naruto's personality has changed a lot from the original timeline, but he doesn't know his actual strength. Unconsciously, he asked a few more questions. The main thing is that Naruto's wind-style ninjutsu is very powerful. Hinata said distressfully, I haven't learned 8 trigrams air palm yet, just relying on gentle fist, I can't get close. And he seems to have plenty of chakra. He uses all kinds of ninjutsu continuously, and I don't know revolving heaven. Even if I see his technique through the eyes, I can't make a good response. In addition, his physical skills are actually not weak, and his physical fitness is much higher than ordinary people. It sounds like he has a comprehensive grasp of his strength. Listening to Hinata's narration, Ryosuke was a little surprised, but thinking about it carefully, the difference between the current Naruto and the original book is quite big. Under his guidance, Naruto now often pesters Third Hokage. Although there is no formal apprenticeship, in fact, Third Hokage's guidance to him is no different from that of his own disciples. Naruto's own talent is good, but because of the influence of Nine Tails chakra, he is very clumsy in control and cannot use ninjutsu well. Now, with the guidance of Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is a doctor of ninjutsu, it seems inevitable that his strength will surpass his peers. End of this chapter. Chapter 64. Chapter 64 Application for Graduation. I've submitted my application and am about to graduate early. After Ryosuke's transformation, both in appearance and body, he is more mature than before. In order to avoid too much physical change and make others suspicious, even after the second transformation has been completed, he still stays at home and returns to school after a month's vacation. But this time when he came back, he quickly discovered the difference around him. Originally, those figures who would monitor Naruto nearby disappeared, and even Sarutobi Hiruzen did not pay attention to Naruto for a whole day to observe him with the telescope technique. And when school was over, Naruto, who hadn't talked to him, suddenly turned his head and spoke. What? For a while, Ryosuke was a little unresponsive, tilting his head and looking at him strangely. Although the peaceful life in school is very good, I have accumulated a lot in both theoretical knowledge and actual combat. Naruto smiled and explained, unfortunately, learning in school is always limited. During the actual combat exam a few days ago, I discovered that I have become much stronger than most people unconsciously. It's time for me to leave school and get in touch with the outside world. Although there are not many opportunities for actual combat, because no one is willing to fight with him. But standing next to the practice field after school to observe and study every day has taught him a lot. It seems that because of the 9 tails in his body, his chakra is born much more than ordinary people. When he is able to skillfully use the ninjutsu taught by Grandpa 3rd generation, he stands at the top of almost every actual battle. Invincible position. None of the students in the school today has the ability to compare with him in the amount of chakra. In the battle, he was like a mobile turret, crushing everyone in the same period except Ryosuke and Sasuke who were on leave, but this is the only thing that makes him feel bad. Ryosuke, can I have a fight with you? Naruto asked expectantly. He is very clear that Ryosuke's strength is not as ordinary as he showed in school, and he is probably the most powerful one in the whole grade. But because he knew that his identity was sensitive, he never dared to have too much contact with Ryosuke, so as not to affect him. But now Naruto can feel that it seems that because of the improvement in strength, Grandpa Third Generation has a lot of peace of mind for him, thinking that he can control Nine Tails well, so he has withdrawn a lot of surveillance. Now, it should be. I won't fight you. But Ryosuke directly rejected Naruto's proposal. You go to Uchiha Sasuke, he is your opponent with equal strength, and you can learn a lot from him. It's no fun bullying a child, let alone such an eye-catching child. Sarutobi Hiruzen is not very wary of Naruto now, and Ryosuke doesn't plan to fight him either. Can? Naruto hesitated, and was about to say something. But Ryosuke had already stood up. It can be seen that an actual combat assessment has made your heart swell, and you have forgotten how to calm down and think. His face was restrained, and Naruto kept smiling in front of him, making him feel like he was looking in a mirror. A word of advice to you, arrogance is the biggest taboo of ninjas, and it will make you lose in missions. He looked down at Naruto from a high position, his eyes had opened unconsciously, and the momentum on his body had been locked on the invisible Vice Admiral. I always think you are a good person, I hope your future growth will not disappoint me. The tone was indifferent, as if he was indifferent to everything in the world. On the opposite side of him, Naruto was sitting on a chair, cold sweat was visible on his forehead, and the smile on his face froze even more. This feeling of being locked reminded him of a long time ago, and it was also such a time after school. At that time, he was also like now, unable to move his body, unable to open his mouth to say a word, and even less able to mobilize the chakra in his body. What kind of power this is, until now Naruto has not figured it out. Under such circumstances, can he really start a fight with Ryosuke? Indeed, he has been a little bloated recently. The date for applying for the assessment is coming, remember to remind me, when you become genin, I will treat you to Ichiraku ramen. Seeing Naruto's blank look, Ryosuke rolled his eyes back, turned around and walked out of the classroom after leaving a word. Hinata was still waiting for him at the training ground. And many more. Without the suppression of that strange force, Naruto finally had a chance to speak. Ryosuke stopped and turned around suspiciously. Since you won't give me a chance to challenge, can you take me to meet Uchiha Sasuke? Naruto stood up earnestly, without the smile that always imitated Ryosuke on his face. Konoha Hospital, in my capacity, I can't go in casually, and I'm not sure in my capacity, will they help me find Sasuke? I don't know how long the guy is going to be in the hospital, but I heard that his body has recovered, but he just can't accept that thing mentally. I don't have any extra time to wait for him to return to school. I will leave the school after I apply in a few days. It's not good to bully the students in the school as a genin. After thinking for a few seconds, Ryosuke quickly made a judgment, yes. Walking openly on the streets of Konoha, Ryosuke followed Hinata and Naruto. He is Naruto's only friend in school, I believe Sarutobi Hiruzen and the high-ranking Konohas have already known about it. But this contact was the result of Naruto's active approach, and they had no way to interfere. And in the process of contact, Ryosuke has always maintained the proper distance, which they are also aware of. Even Sarutobi Hiruzen was probably still satisfied with his performance, happy that Ryosuke kept pushing Naruto towards him, so he didn't make an appointment with Hyuga. So, except that actual combat might reveal what Ryosuke has been hiding all along. He is now in daily contact with Naruto, but in fact it doesn't have much relationship, so he didn't refuse the request. It always feels weird. Holding Ryosuke's hand and obediently following beside him, Hinata spoke in a low voice. Pedestrians on the street, whether ordinary people or ninjas, consciously avoided the three of them. Even if some people are crowded and relatively prosperous road sections, after they appear, the crowd will quickly give up a sky's path to them. This gave her the illusion of being alone. This is an authority that she never had as a Hyuga clan. When Naruto heard her words, his face was a bit bitter. The Konoha hospital is ahead, I'll wait at the door for you to ask about Sasuke's ward, and then go there. He stopped and looked at Ryosuke. No, just go in. Ryosuke chuckled and shook his head, it's just a visit to the patient, what are you afraid of for reasons? End of this chapter. Chapter 65. Chapter 65. When he brought the two of them closer to Konoha Hospital, Ryosuke could clearly feel the atmosphere in the hall suddenly freeze. Time seems to be stopped. Almost everyone was staring at the door, who had just walked in. The big guys in the hall didn't speak, but the indifference and hatred in their eyes clearly conveyed their emotions. With so many people watching, Hinata's disguise was a bit untenable, her palm was tightly gripping Ryosuke's hand, and she almost lowered her head. This look and atmosphere really made her feel flustered. "Excuse me, where is Uchiha Sasuke's room?" But Ryosuke turned a blind eye to the scene in front of him, as if he didn't notice the strange eyes of these people, and took Hinata to the counter of the service center with big strides. After Hinata felt the strength of being held back in his hand, he felt relieved all of a sudden. 4. Room 405. The middle-aged woman at the counter who was responsible for recording the ward files was a little hesitant at first, but under the gaze of Ryosuke's white pupils, she dutifully explained the location of the ward. Taking another look at the internal introduction map of the hospital, and confirming the ward where Uchiha Sasuke is located, Ryosuke nodded and said thank you, then turned and left with the two of them. And it was only after they walked into the aisle that the atmosphere in the hall returned to the way they didn't come in. Why is the eldest lady and young master of the Hyuga family with that person? Look at the beard on his face, maybe. Stop talking, bad luck. Thanks to the powerful perception ability, the soft voice of discussion reached Ryosuke's ears, but it didn't change the expression on his face in the slightest. Ryosuke is really good. Naruto, who had been silent since entering the hospital, finally spoke. His voice lost its usual indifference and became a little bitter. He was able to deal with those people without changing his expression. Ryosuke didn't reply. Although Naruto learned from him and learned well, he is still just a child in his mind. 2 lives, many things, many people. Ryosuke really has no interest in paying attention, or in other words, does not want to put his energy on irrelevant people or things. But Naruto couldn't help but care too much, instead he cared too much. That's how he learns from Ryosuke and makes himself a gentle person. He is trying to integrate into the group and let everyone agree with his existence. 4 and 5. The road was unimpeded, and they soon came to ward number 5 on the 4th floor of the hospital. And at this time, Ryosuke could clearly feel that Sarutobi Hiruzen's perception fell on them after a long absence. It seems that this way, their coming to Uchiha Sasuke has been reported. Swish. After knocking lightly twice, Ryosuke opened the door of the ward. The ward is not big, just a very ordinary single room. On the hospital bed, Uchiha Sasuke, who hadn't seen him for a long time, leaned his back on the bed and sat down, staring out the window blankly. Even when Ryosuke and the others came in, he didn't seem to notice. Sorry for a disturbance. Regardless of whether Uchiha Sasuke paid attention or not, Ryosuke was polite enough anyway. While speaking, he led Naruto and the others into the house, and closed the door of the ward by the way. And it was at this time that Uchiha Sasuke slowly turned his head, and his pair of dead fish eyes shifted to look at Ryosuke and the others. Immediately afterwards, after seeing Ryosuke and Hinata, there was a sternness in his eyes. Why are the Hyuga family here? Are you watching a joke? The tone was full of strong evil spirit. Sasuke seemed to be venting the flames accumulated in his heart during this time. However, it seemed that most of the mental damage brought to him by Uchiha Itachi had been recovered, and what was left was only a thick shadow. Don't get me wrong, we're just leading the way. Ryosuke didn't care about his appearance, and pulled Hinata to a chair beside him to sit down. Although the person had already arrived, he was not in a hurry to leave. I'm here to find you, Uchiha Sasuke. Under Uchiha Sasuke's puzzled eyes, Naruto stepped forward and came to Sasuke. I want to challenge you. He smiled and said the purpose of coming this time. Challenge me. Facing his smile and words, Sasuke frowned, only feeling harsh. He turned his head and glared at Ryosuke and the two on the chair. Did you bring this guy here to humiliate me? It can be seen that he doesn't know what happened in school recently. When you asked for leave, Naruto took the first place in actual combat and the third place in theory, and won the first place in his age. Ryosuke was not annoyed, and explained with a smile. Number 1. Sasuke turned his head in amazement, and looked at the yellow-haired kid with a hippie smile in front of him, who he hated no matter what he looked at. Just such a guy who dares not even fight in actual combat, can he take the first place? In his eyes, Naruto observes other people's fights in the practice field every day after school. He doesn't think that no one is willing to practice with Naruto, but feels that he has no courage to fight. Actually, I have already submitted an application for an early graduation assessment. Naruto explained with a smile, no matter what, I don't want to leave any regrets in my school life, so I asked Ryosuke to bring me to you. The title of number 1 in the grade can only be earned by defeating you. He didn't mention Ryosuke's strength at all, he knew that Ryosuke wanted to hide his ability, just like he himself hit a lot graduate early. Just rely on you. It seems that the vocabulary of graduating early stimulated Sasuke. He clenched his fists. You only study for 1 year, do you have the qualifications to pass the examination? Ridiculous. While speaking, he got up from the hospital bed. I accept your challenge. I remember your name is Naruto? Hat, I will let you know what is called the real first grader and what is called a ninja. Ninjas, that's not what those embroidered pillows can be. As he said that, he also glanced at Ryosuke and the two meaningfully. But Ryosuke always has a smile on his face, while Hinata has always been expressionless. Naruto hesitated, let's make another appointment, your body. Even in the hospital, I didn't forget my daily exercise. Directly interrupting Naruto's subsequent words, Sasuke's gaze was very cold, this is an off-campus engagement. Since you are going to challenge, you must have the consciousness of being killed. Are you mentally prepared? Applying for the graduation assessment after only 1 year of study at ninja school really stimulated him too deeply. Naruto's posture and actions reminded him of a person. The man who would always keep a gentle smile in front of him, but at the same time made him hate him deeply. If it's convenient, allow us to watch the battle. But at this moment, Ryosuke's voice interrupted his thoughts. Sasuke turned around, looked at a man and a woman who stood up, and snorted coldly, whatever. End of this chapter. Chapter 66. Chapter 66 Sarutobi's exploration. There is a vast lawn outside Konoha village. In the dim sunset, the sound of the waterfall is very noisy. But compared to the sound of rushing water, the occasional loud collision sound nearby is more eye-catching. On the vast lawn, 2 black shadows are chasing each other and intertwining. Fire style, flame bomb. With the flow of Madara and Chakra in the body, 3 fiery fireballs spit out from Uchiha Sasuke's mouth one after another, and shot towards Naruto. The roar of the fireball was like a cannonball, clearly resounding in this peaceful environment. And Naruto dodged these fireballs without panic, and then in the gap of dodging, he also made a seal, wind style, wind cutting technique. The almost invisible wind style technique turned the hurricane into a sharp blade capable of harvesting life, flew out from the gap between several fireballs, and slashed towards Uchiha Sasuke. But no accident, Naruto's ninjutsu was also easily dodged by Uchiha Sasuke. Today's Sasuke has lost the arrogance and contempt that he took up the challenge at the beginning. At the beginning of the fight, when he saw Naruto's speed and ninjutsu, he put those emotions behind him and took the fight seriously. Wind style, great breakthrough. A strong hurricane rose from the periphery of Naruto and swept towards Uchiha Sasuke. And this momentum directly brought up many weeds that hadn't taken root in the soil. Under this hurricane, those weeds also have a slight lethality. Without hesitation, Uchiha Sasuke dexterously retreated out of the range affected by ninjutsu. While running to avoid Naruto's pursuit, he thought about how to counterattack. Naruto's chakra is stronger than he imagined. Farther away, Ryosuke and Hinata stood silently on top of a giant tree, watching the battle with their white eyes condescending. Okay, so powerful, with this level of ninjutsu, Uchiha Sasuke can react immediately and retreat. Hinata widened his eyes and watched the battle. From time to time, she also praised, her tone full of envy. Under Ryosuke's guidance, she knows exactly what her weaknesses are. In battle, she always lacks the matching reaction power, and she is always unable to exert her own strength. But in this battle, she felt that both of them had extremely extraordinary fighting talents. They were like natural ninjas, with extremely keen fighting intuition and nerve reaction speed. You can do it in the future, as long as you work hard. Ryosuke said with a chuckle, just about to reach out and stroke Hinata's hair to comfort her. But the perception brought by the white eyes has already made him stop. Little Hinata wants to target the two of them, and it will not be easy to catch them. A hoarse but kind voice sounded beside the two of them. At some point, an old man in a white robe and a bamboo hat had come to them and stood on the giant tree with them. 3. Grandpa third generation. Ryosuke first took a step back pretending to be surprised, and then asked politely, "Why are you here?" And Hinata next to him also yelled obediently. "Good boy." Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded with a smile, and the old man Madara's face was wrinkled. The graduation assessment application submitted by Naruto has been passed. I went to his house and found no one. When I heard the movement, I came to check and found that they were fighting privately here. Naruto just wants to get the title of number 1 in his grade in a legitimate way before graduation, not through opportunistic methods. Don't blame him. Ryosuke explained. There is no smiling face all the time, no expressionless face when relaxed, and no tense posture pretending to be Naruto. His behavior was very ordinary, as if he just mentioned something casually. He wouldn't believe a word of Sarutobi Hiruzen's words. You must know that since they saw Uchiha Sasuke, the sense of peeping around them has never stopped. Rather than saying that Sarutobi Hiruzen came to inform Naruto, it would be better to say that he came to monitor the battle so that there would be no accidents. I don't blame him. But Sarutobi Hiruzen was very satisfied with Ryosuke's lukewarm and casual attitude. I often heard Naruto talk about you, and he said that you were his only friends in school. After all, we are at the same table, plus. I know his situation, my father mentioned it to me and Hinata. Ryosuke refocused on the battle below. He shouldn't be in that situation, he is son of a hero. Naruto, it's poor. Hinata also briefly expressed his opinion, but he worked hard and was very strong. Yes. When mentioning this matter, Sarutobi Hiruzen's original smile restrained, and he sighed helplessly, but he didn't explain much. He also turned around and looked at the struggling figure below with complicated eyes. The battle below is still going on, but the atmosphere above the giant tree is a bit quiet. Ryosuke and Hinata didn't initiate a conversation, and Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't speak either. Time passed little by little, and the battle situation below also changed from being evenly matched. Uchiha Sasuke's physical strength began to decline, and the amount of chakra was even insufficient. He can still keep fighting now, completely relying on his learning and talent. If it is an ordinary ninja, perhaps the change in the battle situation has affected the state of mind, and thus lost the battle. But because of the pride in his heart, he insisted on not admitting defeat. It looks like it's over. But persistence is just persistence after all. As bystanders, the three of them are very clear that the battle has been won or lost. And at this time, Sarutobi Hiruzen said again, Naruto's strength is guided by me. I am still very relieved about his graduation assessment, but I am hesitant about what kind of companions should be assigned to him when he officially becomes a ninja. I don't know what kind of companions can accept him. Little Ryosuke, have you considered applying early for graduation? Like a little old man worried about whether his grandson will be bullied on his first day of kindergarten, he wants to find a suitable teammate for Naruto. But his words made Ryosuke vigilant. I need to be with Hinata, she is the future head of the family, protecting her growth is very important to our clan, this is also what my father meant. He chuckled at Kide, who had been concealing Sarutobi Hiruzen's perception of his strength, but it was also expected. Even without superficial insight and perspective, a person's strength can still be judged from other aspects. But the specific level is more difficult to detect. So Ryosuke is not worried that Sarutobi Hiruzen will have greater suspicion of their Hyuga because of his talent. Because at this time, Hinata's identity and Hyuga's rules will become his protection. That's right, that's really a pity. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked a little disappointed. He took out a scroll from his pocket and handed it to Ryosuke. After their battle is over, give this scroll to Naruto, and tell him to take the graduation assessment tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 67. Chapter 67. Little Rabbit. Sarutobi Hiruzen left. And the battle came to an end. Although the outcome has been decided. But of course, the result would not be the proud Uchiha Sasuke taking the initiative to admit defeat, but Naruto holding the pig's head with a bruised nose and swollen face, firmly pressing Sasuke to the ground, preventing him from getting up. Only then was he forced to give up his resistance due to the shameful gesture of helplessness. He really didn't want the two Hyuga's people in the distance to watch this embarrassing look any longer. You're good. After standing up, Naruto leaned forward with a playful smile and stretched out his arms to pull him up. But Sasuke slapped his palm away with a cold face, and stood up by himself. It's not that I can't afford to lose, you are indeed much better than me, and you take away the title of number 1 in the grade. Then he paused, and then spoke again, but I will catch up with you soon, and then I will let you see why the Uchiha clan is truly powerful. From the moment the battle started, he knew that he had underestimated this guy who had always had little presence in the class. Being able to learn so many ninjutsu and having a huge foundation of chakra, he admits that this guy named Uzumaki Naruto is very powerful. But this is also normal. After all, this is after he asked for leave and became the new #1 guy in the grade. It is understandable to have such strength. Hopefully that day isn't too far away. Naruto nodded with a smile, and in this battle, he found that Uchiha Sasuke was also a person who had no ill intentions towards him. Although in school, the other party gave him the impression that he was a rude person. But in actual contact, it's not that annoying. Gone. Taking a deep look at Naruto, Sasuke dragged his heavy body, turned around and left. Although I don't want to admit it, Naruto is really much better than him, no matter in terms of physique or the number of ninjutsu mastered. The battle just now had made him exhausted, even standing was too difficult, but Naruto looked very calm, as if nothing happened. But such a formidable guy actually hid silently for a year, and didn't start to emerge until he was able to apply for graduation. He was indeed an opponent worthy of attention. Whether it is heart, or ability. It seems that there is no need to continue to stay in school. Thinking silently in his heart, Sasuke walked towards the village with heavy steps. When passing Ryosuke and the others, he unconsciously raised his head and glanced at the two standing on the treetops. Just in time, he met Ryosuke's smiling eyes. Are you laughing at me? The look in Ryosuke's eyes reminded Sasuke of his arrogance before the battle, and his face, which was already flushed because of the high-intensity battle, became even hotter. But soon, he suddenly remembered a question. Since even Naruto is hiding, this Ryosuke. It looks good, not as impulsive as I thought. Looking at the eyes of Uchiha Sasuke when he left, Ryosuke jumped down from the treetop with a chuckle. It seems that as long as it doesn't involve that man, he can still control his emotions. After Sarutobi Hiruzen left, the feeling of being watched has disappeared. Uchiha possesses a pupil technique known as the Eye of Spiritual Reflection, and the ability will evolve and change with changes in emotions and minds, so this family is often more extreme in emotional expression and release. Their emotions are more complex and difficult to control than ordinary people, and the process of emotional changes will be infinitely magnified. This is why second Hokage Senju Tobirama has always believed that the Uchiha clan is uncontrollable and may have a great impact on the village. Although they are powerful, they are unstable, so this strength is their defect. Uchiha Sasuke was always cold in school. I thought he had facial paralysis. Hinata also jumped down from the tree and landed lightly on the ground. Little Sakura and Ino liked him so much, but he didn't react at all, just like a wooden man. And there are so many inner dramas and so many emotional changes. At any rate, she is going to be the head of the house, and under the influence of her father and Ryosuke, she has gradually learned to observe everyone around her. To be honest, the Uchiha Sasuke I usually see at school is very different from the Uchiha Sasuke who was just now in the ward, during the battle, and after the battle, and the two are like two people. You still have the nerve to talk about others. Hearing her soft murmur, Ryosuke couldn't help laughing. You're outside, don't you have a cold face, pretending to be difficult to mess with, but when you get home, you behave like a dog like a bunny. Hush! Pouting angrily, Hinata put her finger to her lips, signaling Ryosuke to stop if he can't speak. And her appearance made Ryosuke stunned for a moment. Then, he smiled helplessly. This is the first time Hinata has shown such small emotions since we met. Although she can now maintain a very cold attitude on the outside, and even make an appointment with a male classmate, but the inside under the disguise has not changed much. In the past, no matter in the process of cultivation or in life, she was silently receiving anger. Regardless of whether it was her father or Ryosuke herself, which of their words was a little bit more serious, she felt wronged and tired. She never expressed her inner thoughts easily, and kept them silently in her heart. So every time I have to wait for Ryosuke to comfort her when he notices that her emotions are not right. But now, as her grades are getting better and better, she has also begun to become more and more confident. It seems that she has gradually changed, and she has learned to show some dissatisfaction in her heart. Looking into Ryosuke's eyes, Hinata also seemed to realize that his performance was different from the past. She blushed and put her hands down, her hands behind her back, a little at a loss. Became a bunny again. Looking at her with a chuckle, Ryosuke extended his palm gently. Let's go and tell Naruto that he can graduate tomorrow. Hinata, who was still a little emotional just now, held Ryosuke's hand obediently. The two walked towards Naruto who was resting in the distance. Ryosuke could clearly feel the bouncing steps of Hinata next to him, and it seemed that he had changed from a quiet little rabbit to a lively little rabbit. Ryosuke, it looks like I underestimated Uchiha Sasuke a bit. As soon as they approached, Naruto immediately stood up from the ground when he saw the two of them, and said to Ryosuke, actually, I thought I would win easily, after all, my ninjutsu was taught by Grandpa third generation of. And Sasuke hasn't awakened Uchiha's bloodline, and doesn't have the ability to master the Sharingan, so his strength is greatly reduced. But even then, it wasn't easy for me to win. His first place in the grade did not rely on Sharingan to stand up. Whether it is theoretical knowledge, ninjutsu, or gymnastics, he relied on his own efforts to achieve it. Ryosuke smiled and threw the scroll left by Sarutobi Hiruzen, don't use the 3 words Uchiha to cover up his sweat and talent. This is the assessment application form left by Lord 3rd generation. He came over to watch the match just now, but left early when it was over, but he asked me to hand over this approved application form to you. If it goes well, you should be able to become a real ninja tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 68. Chapter 68. It's fine when the elders lecture, you don't want to graduate early, do you? All the way home, Hinata was a little silent. There is no need to guess, Ryosuke can see what she is thinking in her pure heart at a glance. Hey. Hinata raised her head, trying to hide something, but facing Ryosuke's eyes, she smirked embarrassedly. Don't think about it, it's impossible. At first, he wanted to reprimand her severely, but under this smile, Ryosuke changed his words, the graduation assessment voluntarily applied for is not the same as the group assessment arranged by the school. Besides, my father will not agree, you give up. Oh. Hinata grumbled with a puffed face, and Hinata was a little bit unwilling. But soon, she regained her good mood and jumped up. It was just a whim at first, and she knew that compared with Sasuke and Naruto, she still had a distance. Ryosuke shook his head helplessly, but after she reminded him, he seemed to understand why Naruto failed to graduate twice in the original book. There are 2 ways to graduate from the ninja school. One is the group assessment that starts after the teacher of the school confirms that most of the students of the same level have the ability to graduate. This kind of assessment does not distinguish between elite classes and ordinary classes, so the time is generally longer, and the group graduation assessment is usually held between the ages of 10 and 12. The content of the assessment is only some very basic theoretical knowledge, or 3-body technique. But as the first village to propose ninja education, Konoha certainly cannot only have the time-consuming way of exporting talents such as group graduation, which is only for ordinary ninjas. The other is the self-applied graduation assessment, which is aimed at geniuses with ninja talent, so it will be more difficult. Under normal circumstances, this kind of difficult independent graduation application will let the genin in the village act as the test questions and conduct actual combat with the applicants. Whether defeated or not, the examiner will score according to the actual performance in the battle, and those who pass the score will successfully graduate. Therefore, ninjas who can successfully complete graduation through the second path are without exception extremely talented ninjas. Like Hitaki Kakashi, who entered school at the age of 5, graduated in the same year, and became a chunin at the age of 6, and Uchiha Itachi, who entered the school at the age of 6 and graduated at the age of 7, each of them is a proud child of heaven who brings together various talents. Based on Naruto's character in the original book, in order to gain attention, there is a high probability that he applied for early graduation, but failed twice, which led to him graduating in the same class as Uchiha Sasuke and the others in the same year as Uchiha Sasuke. But Naruto in this timeline is very strong, and he should become genin smoothly tomorrow, as long as 3rd Hokage doesn't make things difficult for him and secretly arranges for him an opponent with genin strength but wearing a genin forward protector. Slap! Hinata stopped abruptly, pulling Ryosuke out of his thoughts. He turned his head suspiciously, and looked at the girl next to him who was restraining her smile and pretending to be cool again. Master Ryosuke, Miss Hinata. At this time, a voice sounded from a distance. Turning his eyes to the direction of the Hyuga clan, Ryosuke realized that there was a figure standing at the gate of the clan, waiting for them. The promotion was successful. Approaching this person, staring at her different forward protector and ninja armor, Ryosuke chuckled and said, "Congratulations." In front of him was Hyuga Zinke, who accepted the genin assessment task some time ago and went out of the village to take risks. Whether it is Zinke or Zonkai, they themselves have the same strength and character as genin. They have not only been on the battlefield, but also stayed at the chunin level for a long time, so it is a matter of course to pass this assessment. "Thank you Master Ryosuke for your compliment," Hyuga Zinke said very politely, and handed over another list. This is what you told me before, and I recorded it in this scroll while I was in the middle of the task. Thanks a lot. Ryosuke took the scroll silently, but did not open it for the first time to check. What are your plans for the recent period? Are you going to continue to be the guard for me and Hinata? He looked to Hyuga Star Color and asked. Certainly. Hyuga Star Color nodded happily. Ryosuke looked at her with a chuckle. That's it, I might find you troublesome things to do occasionally. As you order. Hyuga Zinkai kaied without hesitation, but, what about Tsuji? He won't fail, right? He came back after completing his mission some time ago, but now he has left Konoha and went to Kyoto to take up the post of guardian ninja. Ryosuke explained. Let's go back and talk about it first. Yes. Father, I need you to help me find some people. After dinner, Ryosuke came to the study hesitantly. Sitting at the desk, under the dim light, Hyuga Hayashi raised his head, suspiciously waiting for the next words. It's just the few people I circled in this list. Ryosuke handed over a scroll with both hands. These tribesmen are all Grandmaster Medical Ninjutsu people, and they have no great malice towards our clan. Medical Ninja. Something is wrong with your body? Is it because of the white eyes? When mentioning medical treatment, Hyuga Hayashi frowned, showing full of worry in his expression. No, it's not my body, it's actually like this. Unable to bear this kind of warm family affection the most, Ryosuke smiled awkwardly, and talked a little bit about what happened on the way back from Kyoto. To be honest, this matter was hidden from Hyuga Hayashi. In addition to being afraid of being banned, part of the reason was that he was a little unwilling to face Hyuga Hayashi after hearing about it. Boom. Not surprisingly, after listening to him tell about the murder of Uchiha with a gloomy face, Hyuga Hayashi slapped the desk in half with a slap. Scrolls, pens, and paper were scattered all over the table. The desk lamp even fell directly to the ground, losing its already weak light. The study room without lights suddenly lost any light. But even in the dark, Ryosuke and the others could see each other clearly with their white eyes. Nonsense. Hyuga Hayashi gritted his teeth. I asked you to go out to practice, to see the world, not to arrange some tests for yourself and get yourself into trouble. I just said that there was such a long gap between the time you left the capital city and the time you returned to the village. Okay, so you are making fun of yourself? Or are you joking with your own life? But I've arranged everything. Ryosuke said weakly to Kaide. Only you? Can you guarantee that you are not missing anything? What if it wasn't 1 Jainin and 2 Chunin who attacked and killed you back then, but 3 Jainin? Then we retreated when we were observing on the cliff. I will not fight a battle without any chance of winning. Then what if they found the trace earlier than you? You won't even have a chance to resist. We have white eyes, and we guessed the possible attack of the other party in advance, so we slowed down all the way, and took turns to look around with white eyes, just to gain insight into their tracks in advance. You. Hyuga Hayashi was so angry that his clenched fists were shaking. Do you know the danger of doing this? I have already estimated the possible dangers in advance, and the way to deal with them, and even planned the evacuation route. If we really can't fight, we have full confidence to leave. Boom. There was another roar. Every word was dismissed by Ryosuke, and Hyuga Hayashi kicked on the lamp in anger. The desk lamp, which had already lost its light, was directly smashed to pieces by this kick. End of this chapter. Chapter 69. Chapter 69. This wave is a pretend face slap failed. Calm down. If Hinata and Hanabi heard the voice coming and saw this scene, they would think that we were fighting in the study. The pitch-black room was in a mess, with papers and scrolls scattered all over the place, and there were countless small fragments of glass lamp tubes. This is the remnant of the desk lamp that was originally used for lighting after being kicked away. It was rare to see Hyuga Hayashi panting violently and acting so irritable, but Ryosuke didn't appreciate the thought for a few more minutes at this moment. He shook his arms and tried to sound comforting. Through the white eyes, he can clearly see that Hinata, who is playing with Hanabi on the other side of the main house, has already noticed the movement here. Fortunately, she didn't come over, but she looked a little puzzled. How dare you put yourself in such a dangerous situation when you left the village for the first time? How dare you let me calm down? How dare you let you go out of the village again? Hyuga Hayashi gasped heavily. His state of mind cultivation over the years was like feeding a dog same. However, he also noticed that his daughter seemed to be affected by the movement here, so he didn't smash things to vent. To be honest, he hadn't been this angry in many years. But hitting Ryosuke with his hands, he was reluctant. After hesitating for a while, Ryosuke couldn't help but continued to retort, "Father, with my current strength, there is no ninja who can keep me." Still so arrogant. Hyuga Hayashi glared at him, just about to continue to worry about something. But thinking about Ryosuke's strength after his transformation last time, he was silent again. "Father, don't worry, I have my own considerations for every matter." Seeing him opening his mouth but being speechless again, Ryosuke gave him a step up in a timely manner, "If it's not particularly urgent, I can handle it myself, and I won't bother you with everything. I need to learn to grow up and be independent. In fact, whether it is me, Hinata, or Hanabi, it will be the same in the future." "It's okay, you mean to let me leave you alone? Do you think my father is annoying?" In the darkness, Hyuga Hayashi took several deep breaths to calm down. "So, if you didn't need me to help you find these tribesmen, you would have planned to keep this matter from me and pretend that nothing happened, yes?" Ryosuke was at a loss for words, and smiled at Kide. "This, isn't it because I was thinking about it, there is no need to bother you." When he said these words, his mood was inexplicably subtle. In fact, not only Hinata has changed because of his arrival, but even he himself has changed unconsciously because of coming to this home. As usual, speaking in this tone is absolutely impossible, but now... Humph! Hyuga Hayashi snorted coldly and looked down at Ryosuke, who was only half a head shorter than him. "Be clear, what are you planning to do with the bodies of these 3 Uchihas? Now the word Uchiha is very sensitive in the village, and once it is discovered, the consequences will be disastrous." Ryosuke scratched his head. "I understand, so I specially selected these trusted clansmen, but it's not appropriate for me to call them here." After saying this, he closed his mouth and did not speak again. The atmosphere was somewhat silent. Neither of them spoke again. Still waiting for a reply, Hyuga Hayashi took a deep look at Ryosuke. He avoided answering the question of what he planned to do with the people of the Uchiha clan, and did not continue to ask, and said in a cold voice, "Man, I will call you over tomorrow, but you have to stay here obediently for the time being. In the village until you 2 graduate." Ryosuke panicked, and quickly explained, "No, you know, my current strength is not weaker than the average Jonin, so you don't have to worry about me." This is what he is most afraid of, and Hyuga Hayashi grounded him directly after knowing this. To be honest, if he just came to this world, he might not care what Hyuga Hayashi thinks. He would leave the village when he should, and he would leave when he should leave. But now, he has no scruples about what his father thinks. Not negotiable. But Hyuga Hayashi directly interrupted his words, "I can't control you when you go outside, but in the village, you have to listen to me. Even if you are very strong now, not weaker than ordinary Jonin, but what if you meet an extraordinary Jonin, or even a ninja stronger than Jonin? You, unless you have the strength to defeat me, so that I can't control you, otherwise I will not allow you to leave the village and do any dangerous things." His tone was harsh, with that non-negotiable tone. But it was this request that made Ryosuke stupid. "Okay." He hesitated at first, Kide. But thinking about such a flat tone, does it seem to be too contemptuous of his father, so he quickly added, "Is there really no need to discuss it? Not negotiable?" Clenching his fists, Hyuga Hayashi repeated again, "If you come to me just for this matter, then you can go, and help me find Ailiang by the way, and ask her to find some people to come and help me clean up the house." "Okay then." Ryosuke nodded helplessly, and quietly exited the study. He kept his face frozen, and he couldn't help laughing out loud until he arrived in the courtyard. "Obviously I'm assured of my abilities, why are you so stubborn and unwilling to let me leave?" The attitude Hyuga Hayashi gave him was too obvious. Laughing, he walked to the other side of the house. Ryo, the housekeeper, is now playing with Hinata playing with Hanabi, and Ryosuke needs to find them now. In the dark study room, with Ryosuke's departure, it fell into silence. After a long time, a helpless sigh sounded from the darkness. "It's not that I don't want to stop him. I will give him freedom after he grows up completely. It's because I don't have the ability to stop him." The next day, when Ryosuke and the others came to school, almost the entire grade was discussing the matter of Naruto graduating early. In the elite class, those who have seen Naruto's performance in the actual combat assessment are convinced, and there is no surprise that he will apply for graduation. But the people in the ordinary class have never seen Naruto make a move, and they even have a lot of malice towards Naruto, so most of them laughed at his application for graduation. After a year of obscurity, Naruto, who has risen once, properly counterattacks the script of the good-for-nothing hero. At present, the plot seems to have developed to the stage where the male protagonist is about to explode, and the people who eat melons are brainlessly ridiculing. In other words, all it takes is for Naruto to pass the graduation exam and slap these scoffers in the face with the truth, and the script is over. But at this moment, before the face-slapping session happened, another news came out. Uchiha Sasuke returned to school, acknowledged Uzumaki Naruto's strength, and also admitted that he lost the first place in the grade to him, and he also wants to apply for early graduation, and after officially becoming a ninja, he will compete with Uzumaki Naruto. End of this chapter. Chapter 70. Chapter 70 Sasuke. Sasuke is going to apply for graduation too? Ryosuke really didn't expect that because of the existence of such an anomalous number, the entire timeline would collapse directly. The two male protagonists graduated 6 years earlier, so he couldn't predict what kind of changes this would cause to the subsequent plot. You know, the timeline of the main plot of the original book is only 4 or 5 years. From the time Naruto graduated at the age of 12, until the fourth ninja outbreak stabilized, they were only 15 or 16 years old. Now that the entire timeline is disrupted, Ryosuke may not be able to predict the future, unless his white eyes can develop new abilities. However, Ryosuke's mood has not been affected by the fact that the already unpredictable future has become even more unpredictable. On the contrary, he is more joyful. During the lunch break, Ryosuke and Hinata enjoyed the cool breeze on the roof together. The gentle and warm smile on his face has not changed from the beginning to the end. The camouflage of Ryosuke's smile is like Hinata's indifferent gesture in front of others, but it should be more skillful and natural. You seem to be in a good mood. Little Hinata can always catch some subtle changes in Ryosuke, even if the smile on his face is the same, but she can occasionally detect when he is really smiling and when it is fake. And part of that was because she had seen Ryosuke's real smile. Because of some interesting things. Ryosuke turned his head with a chuckle. Based on Uchiha Sasuke's strength from what he saw when he was watching the match, he should also graduate smoothly. But just like what I told you back then, whenever someone breaks away from their own destiny and moves in a temporarily unpredictable direction, it makes me feel that my existence is real. Blinking her eyes, Hinata looked like she didn't understand. Forget it, you will understand later. Ryosuke shook his head helplessly, just about to continue to say something. But the chakra in his body suddenly flowed violently, gathering towards the eye sockets uncontrollably. The changes in his body made him stop talking suddenly, his eyes became dazed and at a loss, and under the stimulation of this chakra, he opened his eyes. Help, help! Save people! Save people! Water style, water dragon bomb technique. Why can't it be extinguished? What is going on with this black flame? The noise and crying sounded in my ears. It was like the beginning of a dream, vague and confused. Without an introduction or a background introduction, Ryosuke's eyes are already different. In the last second, he and Hinata were taking a lunch break on the rooftop of the ninja learning. And the next second, he was already in the disaster of flame hell. The black flames are like blossoming flowers, centered on Ryosuke, blooming in all directions. Wreckage and ruins can be seen everywhere, and the ninjas rushing to and fro as if they couldn't see his existence, rushed towards the ruins, and rescued the villagers buried in the collapsed houses. Although the scene in front of him is different from his memory, there is no doubt that Ryosuke can still tell that he is in Konoha village from the fact that there is only half of the Ichiraku ramen signboard left beside him. Illusion? He had an idea for the first time, but quickly shook his head again. The smell of blood, the smell of dust from the ruins, everything so real is not like an illusion at all, but more like a lucid dream. Sasuke! An angry roar sounded from behind. Ryosuke turned his head, only to find that in the distance, a huge purple giant was holding a long knife formed by chakra, planning to slash towards the Hokage building. Through the white eyes, he can also see the cold expression on Uchiha Sasuke's face in the purple giant, and his eyes are full of hatred, which is an unforgettable hatred for the village. Tears of blood flowed from his eyes. This Uchiha Sasuke is different from the one Ryosuke knew. Not only is she more mature in appearance, but she even has a deep scar on her cheek. And that roar! Everything was interrupted when Ryosuke was about to cast his gaze in the direction of the sound. There are only scenes flashing quickly, like a slideshow. What's wrong, Ryosuke? The sudden change on Ryosuke's face made Hinata stand up from the chair vigilantly. She also opened her eyes, alert to the surrounding situation. But for a long time, Hinata did not see any abnormal situation. In the classroom below, some students are still on their lunch break, and in the practice ground downstairs, there are also some people engaged in actual combat. Everything remains the same as before, without any change. Near the rooftop, there were only the two of them. Rolling his eyes back, Hinata turned around suspiciously, and looked at Ryosuke, who was sitting on the chair, still maintaining the previous posture. But at this time, Ryosuke seemed to wake up suddenly, trembling and recovering from the state just now. His whole body was already drenched in cold sweat. 58 seconds. A number quickly emerged in his mind. This is the time he was immersed in that state just now. Since that time, he has been waiting for the arrival of such a state, and has been preparing for it all the time. Ryosuke. A worried voice rang in his ears. Raising his head, Ryosuke looked at Hinata's face, suppressing the doubt and shock in his heart. He showed an ugly smile. It's okay, I just saw something strange. Pursing her lips, Hinata didn't ask any more questions, and sat aside obediently again. Seemingly aware of something happening to Ryosuke, she didn't disturb him, just stayed quietly. As for Hinata's understanding, Ryosuke felt warm in his heart, but his attention was quickly attracted by the flashing picture in his eyes just now. The state just now is a bit like the feeling that he used all living beings as pawns to look down on the world. But compared to that time, he couldn't remember anything after the end. This time Ryosuke clearly recorded everything he saw in that state just now. Ability to see through the future? White eyes are the possibility of seeing the future, and this ability has appeared in the Tsutsuki clan. But compared to the substantive methods such as illusion and coercion, this kind of incomprehensible and very nihilistic ability makes it impossible for Ryosuke to start. It is also for this reason that he has never started to develop this arguably Bion's most powerful ability. But now, he seemed to be passively triggering this ability, because the Long River of Fate had a huge shock not long ago. However, the triggering of this ability did not bring any good news to Ryosuke, but rather bad news. Although I can't tell the age, it should be in the past few years. That growling sound is not Naruto. Naruto's voice is not like that, but it cannot be ruled out that the voice has changed due to age. He will launch an attack on the village. He should know the truth about the genocide, but the Sharingan in his eyes seems to have not yet grown into the eternal Mangeki. End of this chapter. Chapter 71. Chapter 71. Although I haven't tried it, but I have experienced in hundreds of battles. If that is konoha a few years later, where am I? Although it is in the state of opening the white eyes, it has the ability of perspective and perception. However, under the influence of the ability to see through the future, Ryosuke failed to see all the circumstances of the entire konoha, including himself. Looking into the future this time, he just learned that Uchiha Sasuke will grow up very quickly, and he may learn the truth about the Uchiha genocide within a few years. And relying on a pair of incompletely evolved Mangeki, the entire Konoha village was turned upside down. But the specific process and more content, Ryosuke did not see. He is not yet familiar with the ability to see through the future, and he has not even caught the slightest sign of how to use it. But, he is very clear about the consumption of this ability. The chakra in the body is still full, and there is no sign of exhaustion, but Ryosuke can clearly feel the weakness of the body. It seems that the ability to see through the future is dependent on the consumption of vitality and the power of the soul. But for this, Ryosuke is not much worried. If you consume it, you will consume it. The present world is not the demon-free world of the previous life. The means of immortality and life extension exist in this world. As long as he doesn't use this ability excessively, it won't have much impact on the future. The premise is that he can master the method of use. Ryosuke, lunch break is over. Immersed in thoughts about seeing through the future this time, the time passed quickly, and Ryosuke didn't break away from thinking until Hinata's soft reminder sounded next to him. When he came back to his senses, he realized that it had been a long time. Turning his head, he met Hinata's worried eyes. Ryosuke smiled and stood up. Don't worry, I'm really fine. But, this is the first time I've seen your smile so bitter. She was referring to the smile Ryosuke had given her just after he came out of that frozen state. I saw something suddenly, and I was a little worried for a while, but after thinking about it, it's not that important. Ryosuke laughed, stretched out his fingers and gently pinched her cheek. However, you seem to be getting a little fat recently. Although you eat a lot, it's better to limit yourself. No. Hinata, who was still worried at first, was suddenly brought into rhythm. stood up angrily, and slapped Ryosuke's hand away. Although I eat a lot, I also consume a lot. Ryosuke withdrew his hand with a smile, took a step back, and then spoke again. The main reason is that you can eat so much that our family can hardly afford it. Hateful. Out of breath, Hinata leaned forward and stretched out his palm to grab Ryosuke. But unfortunately, he dodged flexibly. Let's go to class, we have to go back to the classroom quickly. Teasing her, Ryosuke left from the rooftop and ran down the stairs. Although Hinata was chasing after him, but soon, because she was back indoors, there was an outsider, so she could only restrain her movements, glared fiercely at Ryosuke and ran away. I'm not fat. Waiting until Ryosuke was gone, Hinata muttered softly, stretched out her palm and pinched her cheek. Immediately afterwards, her movements froze. It seems, a little fat. When Ryosuke returned to the classroom, Naruto, who hadn't seen him all morning, had already returned to his seat. And on his forehead, there is also a ninja forehead protector. It seems that he has successfully passed the graduation examination and became a ninja. Entering the classroom through the front door, Ryosuke could hear many people in the class talking about Naruto in low voices. From time to time, some people would turn their heads and look at him, which was rarely seen before. In the past, Naruto was more like a little transparent. Even if he won the first place in the grade later, he didn't get much attention. But now, he's arguably a real celebrity. Because in recent years, no one has successfully passed their individual graduation applications. How does it feel? As soon as he sat down, Ryosuke asked casually. His eyes scanned the classroom, unable to find Uchiha Sasuke. Not bad, admiration and envy, these are two emotions I've never felt before. Naruto's smile was bright, and he looked in a good mood. But he thought for a while, and then asked strangely, but didn't Ryosuke plan to graduate early? When I left the assessment site just now, I saw Uchiha Sasuke also went to apply. If Genin, who is doing the graduation assessment duel with him, is the same person as me, he should be able to graduate successfully. Speaking of this, he was a little excited again. Our Genin classes in Konoha are usually in groups of 3. If you apply for graduation now, we are likely to be in the same group. At that time, Sasuke and I will be the main players in the team, and Ryosuke will assist you, even without Genin leading the team. I'm not going to graduate early. Ryosuke shook his head helplessly. I have to wait for Hinata. Nine Tails Jinchuriki, Uchiha Orphan, Hyuga clan, these 3 forces come together. Ryosuke thinks it is impossible no matter what. Unless, he becomes an orphan of Hyuga, in which case he might be in the same class. Ryosuke, although you have always given me a strong impression, there is still one thing I want to remind you. Glancing at the door of the classroom, Hinata walked into the classroom with a cold face. Naruto said to Ryosuke seriously, women will only affect the speed at which you become stronger. We are still young, there is no need to be bound by those complicated emotions. Becoming stronger is the path we should take now. Like those people in the class who pay attention to love, you should know whether their strength is improving or regressing from the time of enrollment to the present. His tone was very serious, but to Ryosuke's ears, it didn't taste good at all. Without my presence, you yourself will become what you call a fool who is bound by all kinds of love and complex emotions. Our Hyuga is different from other families, and Hinata is the future head of the family. As her future husband, I should assist her. Suppressing the silence in his heart, Ryosuke once again used Hinata as an excuse. He had discussed this matter with Hinata a long time ago, and she didn't mind standing on the bright side and protecting him from the wind and rain. Is that so? That's a pity, you are obviously very powerful. Naruto looked at Ryosuke with some pity. He felt that Ryosuke was dragged down. But in fact, in Ryosuke's view, Naruto is like a single dog who is pregnant with a solo mother. Although he doesn't understand the beauty of love, he has been persuading others that love is a prison and marriage is a grave. At this moment, the students in the front row let out a scream. Sasuke is back. End of this chapter. Chapter 72. Chapter 72 Prohibition of Matryoshka. The noisy classroom suddenly fell silent. Putting on a dirty face, although Uchiha Sasuke entered the classroom with the same cold attitude as usual, no strangers should enter, but every trace of his demeanor told Ryosuke. His application for graduation was unsuccessful. What's going on? Grandpa third generation should have seen Sasuke's strength, there is no reason to reject his graduation application. Also seeing Sasuke's subtle expression, Naruto was full of doubts. Perhaps, because of that incident. Looking at Uchiha Sasuke thoughtfully, Ryosuke felt a little complicated. The reason is that a few hours ago, he just saw the future of this guy, saw his appearance and strength when he grew up. Before those curious people could ask Uchiha Sasuke whether the application was successful or not, Domino Irika came in from outside the classroom with a smile and a scroll. "Be quiet, it's time for class." Although a nice guy, Irika is also a strict teacher. After he spoke, those who had stood up with curiosity in their eyes could only calm down and return to their seats. "Before class, there are 2 things I want to explain to you." Without going to class for the first time, Irika stood on the podium, smiling and looking at the students below. In the end, he fixed his eyes on Naruto. "I believe that everyone knows what happened today. Uzumaki Naruto, a student in our class, applied for the personal graduation assessment in advance yesterday, and successfully passed today, and was officially awarded the qualification of genin. Although we have only been together for a short year, I hope everyone can be together and congratulate him for successfully taking the first step on the road of ninja." After speaking, he was the first to applaud and congratulate Naruto. "Congratulations!" As the same table, Ryosuke certainly had no reason to refuse, and also applauded. However, the attitude of others is more indifferent. Except for Hinata and Shikamaru, who knew Naruto's life experience like him, the others ignored Irika's prompting. It is worth mentioning that Sasuke, who has been sitting alone by the window, also congratulated Naruto on his graduation. Although only a few people in the whole class congratulated him, Naruto was quite happy about this scene. "It seems that many people have recognized me because of my ability." His tone was full of joy, not fake, which surprised Ryosuke. But thinking about it carefully, it seems to be a matter of course. This is Naruto, although his personality has changed due to various factors. But in essence, he is still a person who yearns for sunshine, but maybe there is also a part of the influence of Ashura Chakra. However, Naruto was not discouraged. On the contrary, Irika, who was standing on the podium, was a little embarrassed. He felt as if he had done something wrong. So he quickly ended the applause and started to talk about the second topic. As for the second thing, it is also about the graduation assessment. Because now we have entered a relatively peaceful period, which is different from the previous war-torn period, so the village has decided to reform part of the school system. The more important content is the implementation of the graduation assessment. The school has decided to raise the application standards for individual graduation assessment. Only the students who get the first grade in the grade are eligible to apply for graduation. Moreover, the school plans to increase the difficulty of the assessment, from the original Genin dual assessment to the Chunin dual assessment, but it is still the same as before. Regardless of whether you win or lose, you will be judged based on the actual points you get in the battle. The new practical assessment and theoretical examination have not yet started, and the old assessment, because of the family's affairs, has not had time to participate. Uchiha Sasuke appears to have been denied the request by Sarutobi Hiruzen because he did not meet the criteria for the application. However, Ryosuke is quite skeptical about this point. He even thinks that this system will be adjusted because of Uchiha Sasuke. The reason is to prevent him from graduating early and inhibit his growth. To know the growth of the Uchiha clan, most of the time only real life and death battles can inspire. So Ryosuke guessed that maybe Sarutobi Hiruzen and other Konoha executives arranged such a wall for him through the promise with Uchiha Itachi, that is, to protect Sasuke. That is, let him stay safely inside the wall, and limit his growth, so that he will not become the Uchiha who was out of control before. I thought I could be in the same class with Uchiha Sasuke, but now it seems I can only be with 2 teammates I don't know. Naruto looked a little disappointed, and he didn't know if it was because of the battle that day. The two had developed feelings for each other. Anyway, before this, they didn't have a lot of intersection, and they might not even have spoken. Not necessarily no chance. Ryosuke thought for a moment, and replied with an ambiguous sentence. You don't think he can graduate smoothly under Chunin's hands, do you? Naruto was a little strange. Honestly speaking, if I hadn't graduated, facing Chunin, I might not even be able to graduate. After all, most Chunin have been on the battlefield. Who knows? Ryosuke didn't explain the problem further. Take this last class seriously. I believe that after becoming a ninja, you will miss this time in school. Looking at the top, Irika, who had already started to give a lecture, he didn't talk to Naruto again, and took out the ninja manual from under the desk. Although Naruto was puzzled, seeing that Ryosuke didn't intend to continue the chat, he didn't ask. Randomly flipping through the ninja manual, Ryosuke glanced at Uchiha Sasuke by the window, but quickly retracted it and stopped paying attention. According to the future projections he has seen, Uchiha Sasuke will definitely not be bound by this reformed system, and he will definitely graduate early. Otherwise, he couldn't have awakened Mangeki at that age. After all, in school, with the protection promised by Sarutobi Hiruzen, he will not be in any danger. But how he graduated, and how he had such a big resentment towards the village, Ryosuke doesn't know. But just like the words that Hyuga's father has said all this time, when he sees the future, it also means that the timeline will change. The future he sees is not necessarily what will actually happen. When there is such a picture and fragment in his mind, even if Ryosuke deliberately maintains the same life and rhythm as before, there is no way to guarantee that everything will be the same as the future seen through the white eyes. Unless, in the timeline when Uchiha Sasuke had resentment towards the village, the people he came into contact with while growing up had nothing to do with Ryosuke. Otherwise, all this will definitely change. But this is impossible. It is impossible for Ryosuke to avoid all the people Uchiha Sasuke came into contact with while growing up. And because he knew this, he didn't change much because of what he saw. Although at the beginning, after seeing those pictures, he was more emotional. But after calming down, Ryosuke found that what he saw was actually meaningless, because the time span was too long and there would be too many changes in the process. Unless the future he sees through is something that will happen within a few seconds, or even an inevitable event that will happen within a few minutes, otherwise this uncontrollable ability will not help him for the time being. End of this chapter. Chapter 73. Chapter 73. I'm not gone away. The venomous sun shines on the forest. The loud chirping of cicadas is extremely ear-piercing in summer. Spring has passed unknowingly, and it has been more than a month since Naruto graduated. Boom! A huge roar sounded in the forest. In the practice field, Ryosuke hit the void one palm after another, just like before he practiced gentle fist. However, although the movements are similar, in fact, whether it is the internal force exertion skills or the force transmitted by the body itself, it is much stronger than before. So much so that although there was no target in front of him, the sound of the whistling palm wind was extremely loud. The kind of force that is like tearing the air is powerful and penetrating. Without using chakra, Ryosuke is only relying on pure physical strength, trying to use the physical skills he has learned. Naruto's graduation made Ryosuke a little bit disappointed. After all, he was the only one in the class who made him feel okay. Even Uchiha Sasuke, who may become black in the future and grows extremely fast, is not in his eyes now. When Hinata monopolized the social power and was able to communicate with the future heirs of other ethnic groups in the village alone, Ryosuke's purpose of staying in the school has changed. So after Naruto graduated, he simply stopped going to school. Anyway, it is very easy to ask for leave in his capacity. But it is said to be a leave of absence. In fact, he is also staying at home to practice alone. Hyuga Hayashi's goal for Ryosuke is that as long as he is defeated, he will no longer restrict Ryosuke's freedom. But because there is nothing worth going out, he didn't challenge Hyuga Hayashi, but practiced silently by himself. Master Ryosuke. Ryosuke, who was still silently practicing the secret arts of the Hyuga clan in order to master them faster, stopped because of a shout. The dark blue lion heads gathered in his hands slowly dissipated. He turned around and looked at the entrance of the training ground. Not surprisingly, Hyuga seeing Cai was holding a scroll and waving in his direction. Taking a few deep breaths to calm down the surging blood and chakra during the practice, Ryosuke paced slowly and walked towards the door. What's wrong? He asked suspiciously. There is news from Zongji's side, saying that the daimyo's side intends to give us a share of the benefits according to the original agreement. Zinke did not step into the practice field, but stopped quietly at the door, waiting for Ryosuke to come over, and then handed him the scroll in his hand. The benefit they gave up is a small vassal country of the Fire Kingdom, and they are willing to give this small country all the material output and population of the country are under our jurisdiction. The patriarch said that you fought for this benefit, so you make the decision whether to accept it or not. Small country. Ryosuke took the scroll casually and spread it out. His insightful eyes only took a few glances, and he understood all the content on the scroll. They made a generous move this time. It seems that because of Uchiha's decline, they were able to recover a lot something out. His eyes were full of interest as he spoke. From coming to this ninja world until now, there are not many things that can interest Ryosuke. But this time is different, because the name of this small vassal country is called the Kingdom of Waves. It's more like a fishing village than a small country. Hyuga Zinke introduced the collected information to Ryosuke. The population of the country of Nami is only 1,000 people, and it is on an island that occupies a very small area. This is a country that does not have the shelter of Ninja Village. Because it is geographically connected to the Land of Fire, it often establishes diplomatic relations with us and presents many treasures. In exchange, as long as we encounter difficulties, our side will occasionally give a helping hand. Speaking of this, she paused. However, I heard that recently, the king of the country of Bo died of a serious illness, and even many ministers died along with it. Although there is no relevant information about the specific cause of the disease, if it is an infectious disease, then this country with less than 1,000 people will basically be ruined. It is a bit too bad for us to accept this compensation from the daimyo. Hyuga Zinke expressed some of her views on this matter. Maybe it's not the disease. Ryosuke pondered. Let's send some clansmen to investigate the situation first. Since the daimyo didn't give a time limit, we are not in a hurry to make a decision. According to the original timeline, the Kingdom of Waves will be safe for the next 10 years or so. It should not be the case that the country will be wiped out due to infectious diseases. But Ryosuke is not a person who is particularly dependent on the plot. Besides, the original timeline has basically collapsed under his own changes. It is hard to say whether the Dibbo Congress will change for some unknown reason. But anyway, I might go out to the village. Ryosuke felt a little helpless when he thought of this. Just in the past month, is he going to break the goal set by his father? To be honest, he has never challenged. Apart from having nothing important to leave the village, part of it is because he doesn't want to embarrass his father. After getting along for so many years, Ryosuke still understands Hyuga Hayashi's character, that is, he is a person who wants to save face. But think about it carefully, am I a little too confident? Leave the practice field and walk towards the location of the main house. Ryosuke was followed by Zinke, but he didn't take the initiative to talk to him and asked for more details about the Land of Waves, but suddenly realized a problem. It seemed. Ever since he knew this goal, he had never felt any pressure, and felt that he would not be able to beat his father. Instead, he felt that his father was releasing water for him, deliberately giving him freedom. Aware of this problem, let Ryosuke quickly analyze the strength between the two. But as he analyzed more, his heart became more and more relaxed. Although because of the second transformation, his various ability indexes have grown by leaps and bounds, and his strength is getting stronger day by day. But he actually doesn't have any pride, but instead continues to immerse himself in boring practice with great perseverance. As for the reason why there was no pressure because of the goal given by his father, it was because he no longer regarded him as a goal in his subconscious. It might be a bit arrogant to say that, after all, Hyuga Hayashi is also the head of the clan after all, and he is also a Jonin. But it is because he is the head of the clan, so Ryosuke keeps reducing the pressure on him in his heart. The reason is nothing else, because among being a ninja and a politician, Hyuga Hayashi's focus is constantly moving closer to the career of a politician. This is an image he has slowly formed in Ryosuke's mind after so long of contact. End of this chapter. Chapter 74. Chapter 74. Hyuga's clan is well protected because of the system. Although they will also go to the battlefield, but that will only happen under extremely special circumstances. As a ninja, Hyuga Hayashi was of course also on the battlefield when he was young. And for his overall contribution to the war, he was awarded the status of Jonin. But, from the middle of the Third Ninja World War until now, he hasn't really been on the battlefield for a long time, and he hasn't even left the village a few times, being dragged down by various government affairs. Guns that aren't sharpened often get rusted, and so do ninjas. Gradually focusing on the family, he abandoned personal promotion, and focused on coordinating the rights and interests of the family and his status in the village. These things consume his heart and strength. Although Ryosuke is young, the two transformations have already made him stronger and stronger, and he has been improving. Although Hyuga Hayashi is older and experienced, he is always lowering his own strength. In contrast, the age gap between the two is constantly being narrowed. And on this point, Ryosuke is clear, and Hyuga Hayashi is equally clear. I have made a decision, do you want to challenge me? In the courtyard, sitting on the porch, Hyuga Hayashi watches the red glow of the sunset while drinking tea. As soon as Ryosuke returned home because of the wave issue, he explained to Hyuga Hayashi that he wanted to challenge him. Without hesitation, Ryosuke said seriously to Kide, because of the Land of Waves, I will probably go there, so I need to be qualified to leave the village. I guessed that you couldn't settle down, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. Hyuga Hayashi seemed to have expected it, and put the teacup in his hand on the plate next to him. Okay, but you need to wait for me for a while. He shifted his gaze from the setting sun to Ryosuke. To be honest, being challenged so quickly gave him a feeling of being slighted. Dazed for a moment, Ryosuke didn't understand what he meant. You mean, we still need to make an appointment? Of course, I need to take some time to prepare. Hyuga Hayashi nodded, with a stiff smile on his serious face. I haven't really done anything for a long time, my body is almost rusting. Since I told you, I will only allow you to leave the village if you defeat me. Naturally, it was about defeating me as a genin, not me as the leader of the Hyuga clan. Although the job title is different, Ryosuke understands what he means now. How long do you need? He hesitated and asked. Because he was not sure when the clansmen sent to the country of Bo would be able to hear the news clearly, so he hoped to make his father feel at ease as soon as possible. 1 week. Hyuga Hayashi stretched out a finger. Since I mentioned this to you, I have been adjusting my body, and it is almost the same now. Although there is no way to play to the peak state when I was fighting on the battlefield, from the perspective of ninja position, I have been able to play a level that a genin should have. I look forward to fighting with you. Facing the serious Hyuga Hayashi, Ryosuke also had a smile on his face. About our appointment, let's not tell Hinata and them, lest they worry. For this face-saving father, he can only do his best to cooperate. Can. Hyuga Hayashi nodded with a gesture. The father and son looked at each other and smiled, and both saw the excitement in each other's eyes. Although the Kingdom of Waves is a small vassal country of the Kingdom of Fire, it is ultimately on the border of the Kingdom of Fire. If you want to reach the border from Konoha village and start at full speed, the time required is not short. In just 1 week, Ryosuke can still afford to wait. But, it's not a wait. Under Hyuga Hayashi's serious attitude, he couldn't help feeling pressure rising in his heart. Genin's strength, he has been exposed to in previous battles. In Konoha village, there are 3 levels of ninjas. Genin, Chunin, Genin. And these 3 levels, the rule of distinction is not pure strength, but considering the overall comprehensive quality. Genin, most of them are ninjas who have just graduated, similar to so-called interns. They have neither strength nor rich combat experience, nor a relatively perfect state of mind, and are easily affected by many emergencies. So at this stage, ninjas are mostly in groups of 3, led by a veteran genin to perform tasks. Genin is an official ninja who has left the internship stage. At this stage, each ninja already has certain strength and combat experience, and the most important thing is to have a certain ability of independent judgment when performing tasks. As for the village, in addition to the job of shadow, genin, the highest ninja rank, needs to have the ability to complete tasks independently. Most of the time, genin receives and completes tasks independently. They can face most emergencies without a companion. Rich combat experience and perfect combat awareness allow genin to have extremely sharp thinking in combat. They can have combat intuition similar to the 6th sense and avoid many troubles and injuries. It's like Ryosuke was facing Uchiha's genin back then. Whether it was a surprise attack, or a follow-up attack with Zinke and the others, this genin always reacted extremely quickly to the enemy. If it weren't for the 2 companions who dragged him down and affected his mood again and again, if he was alone, Ryosuke and the others would not be easy to hunt down, and they might be escaped by him. At that time, Ryosuke had 2 ninja helpers who were close to genin level, Zinke and Zongji, but due to assessment reasons, they temporarily stayed at the chunin stage. But this time, he will face a genin alone. Although this genin is a spear that has not seen blood for a long time and is rusted with Madara, but according to his father's words, he has already begun to polish it to let the rust fall off. But, of course he still has a chance. After all, the current Ryosuke is completely different from the Ryosuke at that time in terms of overall strength. The inner chakra began to surge, and the bluish-white eyes on his face became brighter. To think of myself is to confront a genin head-to-head. Ryosuke couldn't help being a little excited in his heart, and couldn't restrain his excitement. Boom accompanied by the surging mood, the coercion that has already made perfect was compressed to ultimate, and the ground within 1 meter beside Ryosuke formed a circular gully amidst the huge roar. Standing on a tiny rock pillar, Ryosuke glanced at the deeply sunken ravine under his feet. It has been able to cast it immediately. If it is in the case of sufficient chakra, it can almost replace revolving heaven and become a new absolute defense. The ravine is about a few meters deep, and it is coercion that compresses the range to ultimate, the maximum power he can display at present. End of this chapter. Chapter 75. Chapter 75 Genin Naruto Ryosuke, Naruto is here. Ryosuke was still practicing seriously, preparing for the next battle. But suddenly, Hinata's shout interrupted his movement. But when he turned around, he didn't see Naruto beside her. Walking forward quickly, Ryosuke asked doubtfully, "Is Naruto here?" Only then did he remember that he hadn't seen this guy for more than a month. I don't know what happened after Naruto became Genin, and what kind of teammates and guidance Genin was assigned to him. Yes, he is waiting at the gate of the clan. Hinata explained, Naruto came to the school to find you when school was over, but you asked for leave. Thinking that you seemed to be paying close attention to him, I invited him home as a guest. But at the door, because I remembered that you and your father treated him very cautiously before, so I didn't dare to let him enter the clan land directly. I made an excuse, saying that outsiders can't enter the clan land at will, and let him stay at the door. Wait, I'll come back and ask about the situation myself. He didn't think it was wrong. Ryosuke nodded. Naruto hadn't become a formal ninja before, and the senior officials in the village have been considering him all the time. And now that the village has allowed him to graduate early and granted him the status of a ninja, it means that the high-level officials have gradually let go of their vigilance against him. In the future, there is no need to treat him as strictly as in school, as long as, don't casually reveal things to him that he shouldn't know. While leading Hinata towards the gate of the clan, he explained. I didn't hide it from Hinata because of her young age. In this ninja world, age doesn't mean anything. Besides, she is going to become the patriarch in the future, and these things will definitely be faced in the future. Listening silently, Hinata memorized every word of Ryosuke carefully. There is a big difference between people. From the time she was 4 years old, when she saw that Ryosuke could knock away her most feared father with a single palm, she knew that Ryosuke is a very powerful person. So since then, she has been quietly learning Ryosuke, trying to change her cowardly self. Whether it is from the character, or the way things are the same. Under the rosy clouds, the gate of the clan site was not quiet, and many clan members who had gone out returned home. And when most people passed by the gate, they would cast their eyes at the somewhat lonely figure. Although they wondered why this person would appear here, no one approached him, or expelled him, and prevented him from standing at the gate of the clan. It took a while to get from the main house to the gate of the clan land. But from a distance, Ryosuke could still see Naruto standing there with his back upright, not at all relaxed from waiting for too long. Long time no see, Naruto. Under the strange eyes of many Hyuga clansmen, Ryosuke smiled lightly and took a few steps forward. Sorry, I kept you waiting, please come in. Long time no see, Ryosuke. With Ryosuke's invitation, Naruto, who had been standing at the door all the time, walked through the door with a smile on his face. It's my problem, I didn't make an appointment in advance to visit. The main reason is that too many things have happened in the past month or so I can't help but want to share them with you. After all, you are one of my few friends. Although the surrounding Hyuga was strange, but because of the identities of Ryosuke and Hinata's clan, they did not stop them. Obviously feeling the smile on Naruto's face, which is different from blindly imitating himself, but a kind of joy from the heart, Ryosuke tentatively said, it seems that Genin's life is very good. Naruto has been imitating himself, he knows it well. Whether it's behaviors or some viewpoints, he is imitating. Not learning, but imitating, trying to be like myself, but that was at school. Very good. Naruto stands on Ryosuke's left, and on the other side is Hinata. The three of them walked side by side in the direction of the main house. It's boring, but it's nice to be self-sufficient. As Naruto walked, he talked about his Genin life in the past month, and I found that there are actually quite a few people who are friendly to me in the village, during the process of carrying out the task. You may not know that becoming a ninja does not mean that you will be assigned a very dangerous task in the first place. The levels of entrusted tasks are divided into S, A, B, C, and D, and a rookie like me who has just become a Genin can only perform D-level tasks. These tasks are very simple. Most of them are tasks entrusted by ordinary people, such as weeding, cleaning up garbage, and even commissions to help build houses. After Naruto graduated, he was assigned to Kakashi by 3rd Hokage just like the original book. After all, in the original timeline, Kakashi withdrew from Anbu at about this time. With the help of Might Guy and others, he became the Jainin in the village who was in charge of leading and guiding genin. But because neither Harano Sakura nor Uchiha Suzuki graduated, his two teammates are of course different from the original timeline. It's so big. It's amazing. Standing in front of Hyuga's main house, Naruto's eyes widened and he let out a cry of surprise. You don't need to be restrained. Although our family has a lot of rules, if you are in your own home, it is not so strict. Ryosuke and Hinata stood at the door, welcoming Naruto as a guest at home. Leading the people to the living room, Hinata left to play with Hanabi, leaving the place for the two of them. Please. The two sat opposite each other on both sides of the wooden table. The butler Aoyang brought afternoon tea and snacks, and Ryosuke indicated that Naruto could do whatever he wanted. Is this the big family? Although I know it's very powerful, it's the first time I've seen it. Ever since Naruto saw Hyuga's main house, the curiosity in those eyes has never stopped. But, is uncle at home? Will he be embarrassed by my sudden visit? He asked about Hyuga Hayashi's situation. Father has been busy practicing recently, so he is rarely at home, and even if he is, he will welcome you. Ryosuke chuckled. Kide, let's continue talking about you. How about you? They, two teammates. They were all very nice to me, especially Rin. Speaking of the two teammates, Naruto's smile unconsciously rose again. Rin is a member of Grandpa third generation's family. He is very strong, but he takes good care of us and has a good personality. The test arranged by Mr. Kakashi is under his coordination plan, so we can get the bell smoothly. There is also Shang Shan. Although he is an ordinary class ninja who has passed the collective assessment, he has a unique understanding of medical ninjutsu. Although my recovery ability is good, but with him, my wounds can heal faster. Fast. Seeing Ryosuke after a long absence seemed to make him very happy. All the way home, he basically never stopped talking. Judging by his words, he got along well with his companions. Since Sarutobi here isn't arranged for Naruto's teammate, he naturally wouldn't be hostile to him like other people in the village. End of this chapter. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.